Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, Clint McLean. Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a special episode here for you today. Well, apparently I'm Australian. We've got a special episode for you today. I've got my first guest on the show, and we're going to start a series that I want to call the Die Hard Diaries, where I interview people or have some people jump on the show with me here just for some fun. I'm going to introduce you to my cousin, Judd Steiner, one of my favorite people in the world. He wants to chat about UFC 239. Judd, how you doing?
I'm awesome, man. I'm honored to be the first guest on the Die Hard MMA podcast.
All right. That's I'm ready to go, man. I'm excited. This card is so
crazy.
Legit.
It's crazy. I feel like we're stealing to pay the normal amount for this card.
You know what? That's fair. Like for the cards that have been on for the rest of the year.
You could have divided this in half and I still would have bought both cards.
It's true. It's absolutely true. It's by far the most stacked card so far this year. So just to give all the diehards a peek behind the curtain here, how long have you been an MMA fan? What got you into MMA? Do you do any betting? Just kind of introduce yourself a little bit.
So I watched like the original MMA. I watched the original UFC. Watched UFC 1. My buddies in high school graduated in 95, so we were regulars at the video rental store because we couldn't get them where we were, so we would go rent the videos as soon as they would hit the shelves, and have been watching it ever since. So I'm an old fart and a huge UFC fan, and a number nerd at heart. I'm a CPA for occupation, and so love the gambling, and love looking at the odds, especially almost the game of trying to figure out how to get ahead of the casino. How to find their weak spots and take advantage of them to make watching the UFCs that much more fun to be getting paid to do it.
That is so awesome, man. That's perfect. And I think that's going to fit right in with basically everybody that likes to listen to the show. Everyone comes here for the MMA breakdowns and for the betting perspectives and stuff, and the fact that you're a numbers nerd, I think fits right in. And I mean, a lot of us have been watching MMA for a long time, but I can't say I went back that far. I got into it way later than that. You were watching back in the Blockbuster days. I mean, the millennials listening to the podcast don't even know what renting a tape feels like. So
anybody who hasn't seen the first few UFCs has got to watch them. It's so hilarious to listen, especially the commentary, because they have no idea what they're talking about. They're like, oh no, this guy's in a bad position in the middle of him throwing up a triangle. The guy's tapping as he's saying, boy, he's on top. He looks great.
They have no idea
They have no clue what they're doing.
The Gracies were doing stuff and they were like, that doesn't look right. He can't be in a good position.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, now that everyone knows kind of just a little bit about yourself, let's roll right on into UFC 239. I already recorded my podcast for it, so I've given, my breakdowns and my picks. So let's just kind of chat about it, man. Starting at the bottom, we've got a women's fight. A couple of these girls coming in here, and I never... A late replacement, yeah. I never know what to do with these things on these mid-tier women's fights. I mean, I feel like there's always value on the underdog because they fight so close. The difference between women fighting and men fighting, because it's not quite as fleshed out yet. Mm-hmm. They're still kind of figuring out what works. It's just not as deep. You get these crazy wide lines. Like Angela Hill a couple weeks ago was minus 400 and she won. I know some people that made money betting on her. Yep. Angela Hill shouldn't be minus 400 over anybody. My mom could step in the octagon and Angela, okay, maybe she's minus 400 over my mom. That's fair. She was pretty good with the cowlick back in the day. For the listeners, I had this little cowlick looking hook on my hair that made me look pretty awesome in high school. I did the whole blonde tipped spiked hair Backstreet Boy look, and my mom realized at a young age that she couldn't hit me hard enough to make me like fear her, but my hair curled just perfectly that she could hook her finger under it and then yank down on it, and that got my attention real quick.
She was the scary auntie for sure.
So we've got Julia Avila, who's a minus 240 favorite right now. The comeback is on the late replacement Penny. I think that's how you say her name. And I mean, I don't want to tell people to put money on her, but I feel like plus 200's wide.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, this is somebody who was obviously talented enough to get a look. Am I crazy? Was she on the Ultimate Fighter?
She was. She was on the Ultimate Fighter, and she had actually not a half bad run on the Ultimate Fighter. And she got one shot in the UFC, and she dropped it. And that's
legit. Macy, I have no idea how to say your last name.
Cheslon, yeah.
Yeah.
And Macy, I mean, that's where
it's a heck of a debut.
It's 2020 hindsight, man. Like, the UFC didn't quite know what they had with Chasey. I mean, she's only 5-0. She's still really young in her career, but she's a beast.
Yeah.
So losing to Macy is no real snub against you.
Yeah. I don't hold that one against her at all.
And she's stepping in here as a plus 200 dog. I mean,
yeah, I think the value there is on the dog. The other girl looks like she could very well be an up and comer, and somebody that we shouldn't have been picking against. It's less that I'm interested in picking against her necessarily, and more just the value. I'm going plus 200 against a couple of folks who are trying to scratch their way into the UFC. I mean,
for
give me
sure,
the dog.
I completely agree, and that's where, I mean,
if there was a talented or a skill advantage, I feel like the late replacement almost removes some of it anyway.
Yeah.
Because she hasn't had the time to...
You have no idea what she's coming in with.
For her. So, yeah.
For sure. Well, I mean, I guess we can move on from that one. I'm not going to tell anybody to put money on her, but everyone on the podcast knows me. I'm a gambler before being a bettor. Yeah. So I may sprinkle a little plus 200 on the dog line just for a sweat. But I mean, that's where, if you've got $5 or $10 you're not doing anything with, go for it. Give you a sweat on the fight, but it will not be an official pick. So, I mean... And for the listeners, you got to forgive me with the audio quality. I'm leaning into the microphone so everyone can hear me better, but I may lean out so I can pull up Topology and Tapology, SureDog, all the different sites we use for information, and then like getting the betting lines and stuff. That's my job as we're doing the diary.
These guys are blessed to be having this podcast. There's no reason to apologize for anything.
They don't even know. So we're going up to the welterweight division. We've got another set of newcomers here, relative newcomers anyway. Ismail Nurmagomedov, I think is how you say that, and Chance Rincounter. These two are both legit, and to me it's another one that feels super wide. Nurmagomedov is a complete beast, but he's minus 500. I mean, did you look into this one?
I did, and I saw his first UFC fight, and I mean, came out of nowhere, had a heck of a showing. I believe he was the biggest underdog on the card.
Had to have been.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Late replacement, came in and fought a legit UFC guy.
Michel Prazeres.
And comes away with a victory.
Yeah.
I mean, he looked good doing it. And took his shots, was in a couple of positions that weren't going his way. But just game.
He almost flatlined him. He caught him with a head kick, and Michelle had to like scramble for the takedown because he was wobbling, man. That was a crazy fight.
Yeah, it wasn't just happy to be there. That kid really brought it. I mean, but to go from the biggest underdog on a card as a late replacement to being what'd you say, a plus five?
Minus 500.
Minus 500?
You got to lay 5-1 on this kid.
Seriously? This kid's had one UFC fight? I mean, it was impressive as heck.
Yeah.
But was he being overlooked? Did the guy not respect him in the first place?
Oh, I
Did
mean,
he take some chances he shouldn't have?
Coming against Michelle, he was absolutely being overlooked. You got a debut fighter coming in against Michelle. That's the deep of the deep end in the division.
Yeah.
No one's gonna give you even a shake at that fight.
No chance.
And you know what, though? The thing is, I like Chance. Mm-hmm. He's tall. He's long. I mean, he came in against Beneil Dariush was his debut, and he didn't look great. He ended up dropping that fight. But to me, Beneil Dariush, he's like a measuring stick kind of fighter.
Yeah.
If you can hang with Beneil, not even beat him, but if you can hang with Beneil, you belong in the UFC.
That's right. That's fair. And a couple of young kids. And so, if we're talking about... How old is this Chance?
Chance is 32, okay, so he's kind of in his prime. I mean,
for me, but but I mean, we're not talking about guys who have all been there, done that. These
holy
guys.
Crap! I didn't realize he was that much older than Ismail. Ismail's 22.
Yeah, Ismail is a young kid, but okay. So here's the thing: young kid, 22 years old, riding high off of that win. Does he get a little bit full of himself? I mean, he's nicknamed. Somebody nicknamed him, hopefully not himself, the Austrian Wonder Boy, for crying out loud.
Okay, so How I don't know if you've done too much time in a gym where they do any kind of training or anything like that. The whole thing is you don't name yourself. You are not
Better
allowed
not. You better
to
not.
name yourself, because I mean, you come in there, you're gonna be like, I'm Clint Superman McClane. Everyone's like, dude, shut up. Like,
Right?
you get a nickname from somebody. So like when I was training over at Power MMA and Fitness for a while, they've got this kid in there that they call the Ginger Ninja.
Nice.
And I love it. He's
Great name.
so slick on the feet, and he's just this tall, skinny white boy. And of course, he's got the curly red fro.
Gotta learn
And
to fight.
they start calling him the Ginger Ninja. And actually, I think he's a young up and comer on the scene. I've been following him since I left the gym. He's a complete beast, but I love it. But you're like, no way did he name himself the Ginger Ninja.
That's a tough moniker. I believe that somebody else gave that to him.
Now you wrestled, right?
Yeah, well, super low level. Thoroughly enjoyed it. No talent, no explosiveness, no speed, no power, but enjoyed the heck out of it. Yeah.
Did anyone ever give you a nickname or anything like that? Were you in it long enough?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay.
Closest I came to was like my our grandmother referring to me as the second coming of Steve Nash, which I still hold on to for dear life, but not at all.
For the MMA only fan, Steve Nash is a basketball player.
Oh yeah.
And our grandmother related you, the wrestler,
Absolutely.
to Steve Nash,
Second
the
coming of Steve
basketball
Nash. Yeah, that's how much she knew.
That is
Probably most embarrassing moment of my young sports experience was watching videotape of myself wrestling and hearing my family members, my mother, my grandmother, trying to support me and cheer, and all they were saying was push. You would have thought I was in labor the entire match.
I've got to get my hands on that video.
I'd have been willing to give back the pin just to not have that video out there.
Oh, that's amazing. Grummy, I love you. So the only nickname that I've turned up with so far was playing high school football. Mm-hmm. Coach Gracie thought that okay, let me paint the scene here for everybody. Good Christian boy who doesn't step a toe out of line, has never had a sip of beer in his life. I'm a senior, not a senior. I'm like a sophomore in high school, and I finally make the starting football team. Mm-hmm. And he thinks it's just hilarious to paint me as this absolute beast. Like, I'm a complete animal. I do all the things on the wrong side of the tracks. And so he's mocking me one day and is like, who are you? I'm Clint effing McClane.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
That has been my fight name from that point forward. The entire time in high school, I was Clint effing McClane. So that is my fight name.
That's awesome.
I've grown rather fond of it over the years, actually.
Why wouldn't you?
Oh, geez. All right.
I'm a big fan of Ishmael. Big fan of somebody I've seen fight one time. But no, I really do think he showed a lot. I think he's a kid who has a huge future. 22 years old.
Absolutely.
That's crazy. But do I have 5-1 on him? This is one of those where honestly, I'll probably on this fight, I'm always looking for a chance to throw a bet on a fight. And for me, I'll probably be looking at the prop lines to see what they throw out there. Okay. If they're going heavy dose on Ishmael finishing this inside the distance in a 3-round fight with another young guy, I might be looking and going, what are the odds on them going the distance, for example?
So I pulled it up for you real quick. You can get ring counter inside the distance at plus 760. Oh. So for ring counter to pull off the upset and not go to the scorecards is damn near 8-1. Getting him by decision is 670. So, just a tad bit lower than that. They're saying it's just a little bit more likely that he pulls it off on the scorecards. Now, for Nurmagomedov to win inside the distance is plus 113. I mean,
well, there you go. If you've got a 5-1 favorite, I think getting plus money on him finishing the fight,
it's practically even money. They're expecting him to get it done.
Yeah.
So what I did on this one, I got the prop line that the fight just won't go to the scorecards at minus 115.
There you go.
And that's, to me, that gives me the stab on chance.
Right.
that if he shows up and is way more improved than we expect him to be and clips this young kid, I'm good.
Yeah, absolutely.
if Nurmagomedov is the beast that everyone thinks he is and gets him out of there in the first round, I'm not laying
good.
5-1 on it. I still got it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So moving.
Not a bad move.
Those are the early prelims only. So the fact that we've got some exciting bangers for the early prelims,
some up and coming guys that we're excited to see,
just gonna set the tone for the whole card.
Wasn't there one? There's one more in the early prelim. That's not even the end of the early prelim.
Did I miss one? Oh, geez, I did. You're right. I'm sorry. So Edmund Shabazian is facing Jack Marshman, and this one, I had a bit of a laugh on this one at Edmund Shabazian because he is a bigger favorite than John Jones. When I recorded the podcast a couple days ago, Shabazian was the biggest favorite on the card. And he's sitting at around 600 right now. Minus 600. I see minus 670. I mean, I'm high on Shabazian. I think he's slick. And for sure, they are trying to push this kid along.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. Jack Marshman, he's a mid-level guy. He's not great. He beats the bottom feeders. But he's only lost to really good guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? So he's kind of that middle tier guy. I guess it's a good step for him.
Benchmark? Where's this kid at?
It's good measuring stick, but do you measuring stick at minus 600?
Not a chance. Not a chance. And, you know, call me a hater, but part of what concerns me is I've known a couple of other fighters who trained out of the gym that Edmund trains at, and quite popular and good up and coming looking talent who fell flat on their face against my dreams. I mean, this is a guy who's training with the other popular Edmund.
Oh, okay.
And so, I mean, this is not the first time. This would not be the first time that somebody who was supposed to be a heavy favorite fell flat down.
Gotcha.
Out of that gym. I wonder, you know, is he getting the groundwork? Is he getting the overall? Is he getting the level of competition that he needs to be taking these steps up? Now, I don't know that Jack Marshman is a huge step up in competition for him. I think it's a decent fight, honestly, in terms of trying to bring this kid along and not make it be too fast.
Yeah.
I'm actually really happy with it. Because coming in with a 9-0 record and looking slick doing it, I could see them moving him along a little bit too fast.
For sure.
But yeah, 6-1 is heavy against somebody who's seen the kind of competition that Jack Marshman has. I mean, he hasn't beaten them all, but
he's at least been in there with guys like Thiago Santos, though.
Yeah. I don't think that Edmund's going to be bringing anything in that he hasn't seen before. He may have struggled with it in the past, but I think 6-1 against being a 6-1 favorite when you're fighting somebody who's got names on his record like Thiago Santos and Antonio Carlos Jr. I'm going. I just don't see it. I don't see the 6-1. I don't see Jack Marshman finishing him. Mm-hmm. But what are the odds on Jack Marshman winning by decision? Is what I'm curious about.
Well, let's find out. So, Shabazian wins by decision is plus 211. And Shabazian wins inside the distance is minus 133. So they, they're expecting this kid to come out and finish him.
It, which is wild to me.
Marshman winning inside the distance is another plus 735, which I'm with you. I don't see that happening. Mm-hmm. But I feel like you might be onto something here because Marshman to win by 3-round decision is plus 935.
935.
Now, I think some people would say that there's better chance of him clipping him.
Fair.
And winning that way, just kind of a freak slip on the banana peel type of situation. But honestly, I feel like the grappling is going to be the thing that if the hammer gets on top of you. Now, he's got to end up on top. And I don't know that he can, but I feel like that's a much more realistic path because Shabazian is such a slick striker on the feet.
Sure.
I think Jack's going to have a hard time actually connecting on him.
Yeah.
And if he does, I definitely don't think he can connect cleanly to just put him out. So if he hurts him and then gets on top of him, I feel like grinding out around, forcing this thing to a split. That's that's about the only way I see it happening. I'm going to steer completely clear on this one.
Yeah, this is one of those where if I'm trying to talk myself into putting $5 on a fight just for fun, make it a little bit wild to watch, I could see myself looking at one of those props, whether it's going to the distance and going with the favorite, by decision and getting significantly better odds than trying to bet on the kid to win. But yeah, a dodge is probably not the worst thing in the world there.
But I mean, still, that's
what an interesting fight to watch.
Hell of a fight just for the first 3 right there. I mean, so we get into the prelims on this one. We're 3 fights in. They're all going to be bangers. And then they greet us with Alejandro Turbo Perez and Song the Kung Fu Monkey Yadong. Nickname. And yeah, right? Somebody on Twitter pulled the old... I like Perez or I like Yadong, and you had to vote on one. And I don't know, just play on words there. There's a dick joke in there somewhere.
Yep, there's gotta be.
I had to poke the button. I like Yadong because I do. He's about a minus 200, or he was when I did the podcast. That's where I got him, as minus 200. The dude's so explosive, and I didn't feel comfortable poking I like Yadong, but I had to. I don't know, man. I just I love this kid. There aren't very many Asian fighters that come out and really do something, and I think he can.
Well, I'm 21 years old.
Yeah.
Training with a legit spot with the alpha male boys.
Yep. Alpha male's not looking as hot these days, though.
Well, no, of course not. But I mean, hey, it's better than training in our garage.
That's fair.
21 years old, coming over from China, and I don't know. I think this should be a good fight. I don't think that. I don't think this is one of those fights where it would make sense for either one of them to be crazy out of line, but the line looked good to me. The line looked good to me.
I feel like it was a little, maybe just a little wide, that maybe Song shouldn't be quite so big of a favorite. I do think that he is the favorite, and I favor him to win. I'm going to lay the wood with Song.
Well, you've correctly identified that a great strategy is, hey, when the UFC is betting their money on somebody and trying to get their guy to be on the same side as the company is not a bad move.
Generally speaking, because they try to hand feed them a little bit in certain cases, but Perez is no joke here. And so if all the listeners, if you were, tailing my action, this is a spot where I got to pat myself on the back a little bit. We beat that line move. And when it comes to gambling, I don't want to say it's as good as a winning bet, because there's not much that's as good as actually putting money in your pocket. But when you get a better line than the other people out there, that's what it's about. Now, I'm not a professional at this. I'm just some guy who likes MMA and is a degenerate gambler.
Basically a professional.
Exactly, right? I can make t-shirts and call myself a pro any day I want to. But the professionals benchmark themselves on beating the line movement. If you bet someone at minus 150 and then everyone else in the world lays at minus 180, you win.
You've got extra value.
Even if that fighter doesn't get the job done, you've won. So we locked up a minus 200 on Song Yadong, and right now he's sitting at minus 235, minus 240. Money's coming in on him, so I feel like we are on the right side here. And I'm just so stoked to see him fight. Yeah. He's at that age where they advance so rapidly, and I really expect him to keep going up, because even though there have been some bumps in the road with Team Alpha Male and stuff like that, it's still a good gym, especially for a young fighter. You know, they've still got guys that you can learn from. Like Garbrandt might not be what he used to be now that his chin is cracked and stuff like that, but he can teach a kid how to move. Absolutely. He can teach a kid how to counter wrestle and how to throw. And Song is so light on his feet. He's like a mini Machida. I mean, the way he bounces on his toes and angles off. I love watching him fight.
It's wild to me that here we are, we're 4 fights in. Don't know what we're going to get with the first fight. Perhaps an up-and-coming female fighter out of, between the two of them.
Yeah.
And then we've got 3 legit prospects, and we're nowhere near the main card. I mean,
these guys would be potentially on the main card on a free fight night.
If the last 3 fights were on the main card, were the first fight on the main card, I wouldn't be turning my nose up at it.
Right? I'd be tuning in for sure. I'd be ready to go. Oh boy, I love it. I am so pumped.
Where does Turbo train out of? Do we know his gym?
Turbo trains out of
AKA.
AKA.
Wow.
Which, I mean, hell of a gym right there too.
Right.
You know what I mean? He is no slouch. He's got a training room that he's going to have a smart corner. They're going to come with a game plan and they'll be ready.
Young kid himself, just coming into his prime.
Exactly.
29. Yep.
And you know what? He just handled Cody Stamann. I mean, he ended up dropping the fight to Stamann, but Stamann is more often than not a wrestler, and he couldn't get the takedown on Perez. That was a stand-up war because Perez is good enough to keep it on the feet against a caliber wrestler like that.
Went 3 rounds with Eddie Wineland and came away with the win before that. That's, I mean, not bad street cred for an up-and-coming kid.
I was gonna say, Wineland's not what he used to be. That's definitely he's definitely on the downtrek, but that's what you're looking for. You want those names on your resume as you're heading up the chain for sure. God, that's a good fight. That's so underrated, especially for being the first fight on the free part of the card. That's so good.
It's wild to be fanboying out this early in the card.
It shows just what fight nerds we are, and that's what I love about this is like the mission of the podcast for me is to get people into the sport. I feel like so many the other sports are just so huge, and MMA is on the cusp of explosion. Like they finally got onto ESPN. They're finally on free TV on a channel that everyone can get to. It's not like the good old days where it was on oh, dude, I'm blanking.
What was crying out loud? You're talking to a guy who back in the day had to work as hard to get a UFC fight as he did porn. I mean, this is a whole new world that they're already in.
Oh my
and you're
gosh.
right, it's the most fun sport to watch.
Absolutely. And especially with sports betting getting legalized all the way across America, we're set to explode, and people just need to get on board, man.
Every now and again. Now, I'm probably not telling your listeners anything that they don't already know, but every now and again, the handicappers are a little bit better at soccer, at basketball, at football than they necessarily are at MMA. I feel like it's kind of like the judging. It kind of hasn't all caught up just yet.
Absolutely.
I mean, I texted you that picture of Bovada when they had Francis Ngannou at negative 205 to win by knockout.
That was nuts.
Or negative 200 to win inside the distance.
Yeah.
Better odds to win inside the distance than they had him to knock him out.
They weren't even looking at the line. The money shifted the KO prop to the point that it was a bigger favorite than him to win inside the distance. That you could lay a better price for him to win by knockout or submission than just to win by knockout. And that's the kind of crap that happens in MMA betting these days. You hit the nail on the head. I
feel
love
like the chances of that fight ending in a draw were probably better than him throwing out a sub. But
maybe a little. He did question Junior Dos Santos' black belt, so
which was awesome. But poor Junior. Love Junior.
You know what? I'm glad that he didn't get flatlined.
Yeah.
The fact that it was a TKO and he wasn't like, he was able to get up afterwards. He was able to stand on his own 2 feet, and it wasn't like, God, like I didn't know if we'd ever watch over him fight again. When Francis Ngannou hit him with the uppercut, they were, someone in the third row was taking home his head as a freaking souvenir from the fights.
Absolutely.
I really thought he was dead.
There's no way that Overeem's not still having nightmares over that punch.
I don't know how you come back from that. Feeling that kind of power and that hard of a hit, like, I feel like that would shake you to your core. You'd be like, what am I doing in there? I will never beat that.
I'm telling you, if Overeem was not as big as he was, he straight up would have done a backflip off of that punch.
Probably so.
That was such a shot.
I'm glad we get to watch the highlight of that for the rest of Ngannou's career. That might be his like number one highlight for his whole career. So we're gonna move up to the strawweight division. We're back to the ladies' fights, which I love.
Absolutely.
People that talk about women's MMA not being as good as men's MMA, sometimes the level is a little bit lower, but honestly, some of these girls are vicious, man. And Claudia Gadelha is one of them. She's just a complete animal, and when she gets in there, she goes for the kill. And I don't know, maybe it's a little sadistic to say it this way, but like if the other girl is tough enough to take the beating for 3 rounds, like you've got an entertaining fight on your hands because they're going to war.
Well, hopefully my wife is not listening.
My mom's gonna be.
Claudia is an absolute up my alley. The girl is just cute as a button. And I always wish her well. This fight, it should be a legitimate good fight. You're talking about two girls who have a lot of skill, a lot of talent, a lot of heart, and are relatively. I mean, I think this is a pretty decent matchup for both of them.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I'm a huge fan of Randa Marcos. She's completely underrated, and she's dropped the ball a couple of times. Claudia's 30 years old. Randa's 33. I mean, I know we use that as the ballpark for men's primes.
Right.
And I guess we don't have enough to really say whether or not that's women's fighting primes or not. Maybe it might be a little bit
Probably
younger
not.
than that.
Across other sports,
Yeah.
it'd be fair to say that women's primes typically come a little bit earlier than what men's primes do, whether you're talking tennis or soccer or anything else. But yeah, neither one of these two is beyond the point where they couldn't make a run, beyond the point where they're not improving, or where their gas tank starts to become an issue because of age. These are two legit fighters who have had some names on their records.
Absolutely.
Who have been in there a bunch of times before, who know how to put on a show.
Well, and the thing to me is, I feel like Claudia's fading. I don't know what it is. I'm with you.
Well,
I'm a fan
it's
of
probably her last few fights.
and that's the thing is, I feel like I don't know if it's a lack of motivation. I don't know if somebody caught her with something brutal that I'm just not remembering. Or maybe she is Brazilian, and this is something that we see in the Brazilian camps a lot, is they go too hard in training. You know, if you remember some of the older Brazilian legends, like the bantamweight champion, Renan Barão, one day he just didn't look the same.
Yep.
And it's because they go so damn hard in training that they can't keep it up in the fights anymore.
Gym wars.
Exactly.
Yep.
And she almost got knocked out by Carla Esparza. I brought this up in the podcast.
Yeah.
I was rewatching the fight. And I remember very clearly because I had bet on Carla. And I still to this day think that Carla won that fight. It was a split decision.
Robbed out of one. Yeah.
I don't know if I could say robbed because it was a close fight. But I think Carla won. And I was getting like plus 230 or something like that on her for
you.
it.
Speaking of this.
Yeah.
When you have a bet on a fighter, are you more likely to lean their way when you're coming up with a decision or less?
1,000% more
See,
likely.
I'm the exact opposite.
Really?
Oh, as soon as I lay odds on somebody, they land a punch, I'm like, that wasn't that good of a punch. They slip a punch, I'm like, it still kind of caught him. You know, I'm like sweating it out. That's what makes it so much fun.
And I know you're not on Twitter.
Right. No,
but
I'm old. Yeah.
That is rampant on Twitter. As soon as people bet on anybody, you could not talk them off of the fight going their way, especially if it's close.
Oh, yeah?
If it's in any way close and someone had predicted them to win or something, they will die on their shield that they won that fight.
I'm going to have to get on Twitter so some of that can rub off on me.
You know what?
Brody, if you're listening to this, you got to show me. This is my son, Brody. He's got to show me how to get on Twitter.
You probably actually would have a fun time on Twitter. I feel like you would troll people like just creatively enough that they wouldn't get that you were messing with them. You'd be smart enough to outwit the trolls on Twitter. You'd probably have a good time with it.
Sounds like fun.
Well, this is another one where I get to pat myself on the back a little bit. I'm rolling on Marcos because, like I said, I think Claudia Gadelha is fading, and I think Marcos is on the way up, and she's physically strong enough that I think she'll give Gadelha problems. And recently, Gadelha's been fighting a lot closer with her opponents than she used to, so she's got some crazy stats. I feel like the numbers really lie here, where if you go back over her whole UFC career, she's got phenomenal numbers and against a very high level of competition. She fought Joanna twice, and she looked good doing it both times. I mean, she lost, but she looked very good in those fights.
Your losses are to Joanna and Andrade, who we just saw pull off a ridiculous win over
legal
Rose.
murder.
Exactly right. And Nina Ansaroff, who anybody questions who Nina is, if you saw the third round where she fought, what's her name, Tatiana, then all questions are gone.
Absolutely.
She comes to go.
So, I mean,
those are 4 legit losses. Claudia has not lost to anybody she shouldn't have lost to.
Absolutely.
I would say. But
except for the Carla Esparza fight where she should have lost.
Where she should have lost. But I mean, you're talking about somebody who's listed as a relatively decent favorite, who's lost 2 of their last 3, who is facing a legitimate foe in Randa Marcos.
Who's got a ground game, and that's where Claudia usually tends to shine, is the ground.
Grappler.
She'll give her problems.
Yep, and she may be at a power deficit against Randa. And so when they're mixing it up and in scrambles, if she's not, I don't know.
And this is where I got to bring in... I'm bringing in like the timing aspect of it, and we are not getting... Now, again, you're not on Twitter. They call them prime. When when someone is just in their peak performance, it's prime TJ Dillashaw. It's prime John Jones. Yeah. We're getting prime John Jones right now. Yeah. This is not prime Claudia Gadelha.
No, it's not prime Claudia.
I think this is prime Randa Markos.
Right.
And when you get that matchup, and we're getting 2-1 on her, I got her at plus 204. Apparently, I'm not the only person that thinks that, because she's down to about plus 180. So money is coming in on Randa Markos. If this gets anywhere near down to like a minus 150 or something, right, people should bet Claudia.
Let me ask you, in terms of this fight, what do you think the chances are that either one of these girls finish the other one?
Oh, it's kind of a tough question. Randa doesn't really get finished, and neither does Claudia. I mean, Randa's lost by sub one time. All of her other losses have been by decision. And Claudia, like you said, she's been in there with the absolute best of the best in the division for the women. And she's never been finished. I don't see a high likelihood of it getting finished, except if Randa Markos can pull off a crazy sub. Because if Claudia gets tired, and she's been gassing out at about the round and a half mark lately, in round 3, Randa Markos, if she smells blood, she'll go for it. And if Claudia is if she's broken enough at this point, because like I said, Carla Esparza, she made her see stars. I mean, Claudia was like reeling from a shot from Carla Esparza, and Carla doesn't rock anybody. Right. She's not exactly a striker. Yeah. She's a wrestler first, and still is a wrestler today with just a little bit of striking to help her out on the feet. So Randa, I think, will have the power about where someone like Carla Esparza would as well. So if Carla can rock her, Randa can rock her. That's all I'm saying.
That's fair.
And
that's fair.
If it gets on the ground, we just saw Randa handle Angela Hill. And Hill is another one of those girls who now, she's nowhere near Claudia's level. She's nowhere near prime Claudia's level. No. But she doesn't get finished either. Right. And she subbed her in round 1.
Round one.
Handled her.
Yep. Yeah, this is one of those fights where I like the Randa. I like the Randa call here. If you're somebody who's feeling like we're off here, I guess my thought would be either one of these girls by decision will put you significantly closer to a good line than pure betting either one of these girls. And I don't think this fight gets finished. I think we're going to see 15 minutes of a heck of a matchup. Yeah. And so if you feel like you've got this fight pegged, then picking that person by a decision should put you in decent odds.
Just sprinkle a little extra value on there. That's
exactly
a good point.
Right.
And by the way, for the listeners, I swear I didn't just bring him on here to agree with me the whole time.
Just wait, people. Just wait.
He is not the yes man that you may think he is for my first, cooperative podcast episode.
Wait till the main card. We're better to have a problem.
So, next up, I've got some fantastic news. My boy Chito Vera gets to stay on the card. He was going up against Sean O'Malley, and I was so upset that they canceled the fight.
Heartbroken over that.
Oh, and when I did the podcast, there was no word on a replacement. It was simply canceled. Right. There wasn't even, usually on Twitter, you'll see them throw out feelers. Or there'll be people that are like, give me that fight. I want that fight. I'm here. I'm ready. I'm on weight. I can fill in. Like, no one's calling out Cheeto Vera. I don't see anybody on Twitter.
I've been Googling Cheeto replacement every day ever since I heard that fight got canceled. Like, come on, let the guy.
At least you used Google and not like Ask Jeeves or something. But so we've got this kid, Newlin Hernandez.
Totally gave himself his own nickname.
Suave. He must train with Elias Theodoro. So Suave is stepping in here. He's 9-2, and this is his UFC debut, mind you. And he's facing Cheeto freaking Vera for his first fight. Talk about, like, tough. You know how you get jumped to get into a gang?
Welcome to the gang.
He's taking his ass beating to get into the UFC, I feel like.
Now, did you see which camp he's coming out of, though?
You know what?
He's
Honestly,
been jumped before.
I know nothing about this kid, so no. Oh, he's an AKA. Okay, all right.
This is not going to be the first time this kid found himself facing an uphill battle.
That's fair.
Yeah. But he's got an uphill battle in Cheeto Vera.
So I'm trying to look for the line, and I'm not seeing much of anything out there.
I've not found one yet.
Okay.
I've not found one yet.
It's not. It's I didn't do my homework for this one, so I didn't come prepared. People online are probably listening to this and they're like, "You idiots! It's here. Like it's been here for like a day." Well, sorry. I use
Cheeto Vera will be a heavy favorite going into this fight.
I would expect so. And I mean, even when the line opens, I expect it to get crushed because when people see the known UFC fighter versus the unknown debutante, even if they come out of a good camp, even if they look good on YouTube, they're gonna go with the UFC fighter.
Yeah, this kid has, even outside of the UFC, he's on a 3-fight win streak, hasn't finished anybody. He did have one fight in Bellator.
And he has 2 LFA fights. Yeah, that's not bad.
There you go.
LFA is putting out some talent these days. Bellator, obviously, the second, runner-up as far as sporting goes. So,
love seeing all the other organizations giving all these guys opportunities to develop themselves, test their skills. It's awesome.
It's so fun, man. And that's where I'm such a huge fan of Bellator right now. Mm-hmm. My boy Bader is the double champ over there. Sure. So happy to see him getting his money there. And so sidebar. Did you watch the last Bellator event?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I was having to be a father.
Gegard Mousasi
yeah.
was like a minus 14, like a 14-1 favorite and lost the belt. Don't know.
Okay. Wow.
This dude comes in and he's like a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. That's his whole thing. I think he was like 9-0, 9 submissions. And I didn't know anything about him. I kind of looked into it a little bit, but I was like, it's Gegard. You know what I mean? I know Gegard like the back of my hand. So this guy coming out of nowhere, no way. And
good luck. Yeah.
The way I sized it up is kind of like the Rory McDonald fight against the Gracie kid that he just fought.
Right.
He's a better mixed martial artist. Yeah. So Gracie being the better submission fighter, that's all fine and dandy. But unless you're going to catch that submission, you're in a fight. You're in a cage fight. Like Rory was able to outpoint him for more rounds, controlling him with the wrestling, doing slightly better on the feet, just being the more well-rounded fighter. Right. That's kind of what I expected here. Gegard, I think, is on the downside of his career, but he's still a far more well-rounded mixed martial artist than this guy. But then they face off, and this dude's got like a full head on Gegard Mousasi.
Oh, wow.
He pulls off the damn upset, dude. I mean, he went to the cards. He went to the judges' scorecards, but Gegard lost the belt. He's not the Bellator champion anymore. And this guy came through as like a 10-1 underdog.
Wow, hat tip to anybody who sprinkled on that underdog. Jeez Louise.
Right? Against freaking Gegard Mousasi and Bellator? Like, what a call.
Guts. Yeah. Yeah, this guy, I'm super excited for this kid to get a shot. I mean, and I'm also excited for Cheeto Vera to have a chance to fight on this awesome card. I mean, it's one thing getting a fight canceled. Imagine if you had a fight on this kind of a card, though. I mean, how many eyeballs are going to get to see Cheeto Vera that weren't going to see him or hadn't seen him yet coming into this fight? And then to get that canceled had to be a blow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Had to be a blow.
Against a star like Sean O'Malley.
Yeah.
Holy
Sean,
cow.
For sure, put your shoes on when you do your podcast.
Sean O'Malley. I was excited to see him come back, man. I can't believe he's...
Yeah, I'm a fan. He's good, talented, up-and-coming kid.
Talks well.
Yeah.
He's got the whole weed thing going on.
Yeah, well, he's got that. Yeah. Yeah.
Joe Rogan likes him.
Absolutely. There's something going for him.
So we're going to roll into a legend here, and this is how they're closing the preliminary card. I mean, we've talked about it. We've already geeked out about it enough, but they're closing the preliminary card with Gilbert freaking Melendez.
El Nino himself.
And he's fighting this kid, Arnold Allen. And, oh, man.
Welcome back, Gil.
I know, right? So.
Welcome back.
Oh, I mean, Gil he's like a 3-1 underdog right now. You can get plus 310 on him right now. Arnold Allen is another just massive, massive favorite. And I mean.
And just a machine.
Yeah.
Kids looked awesome.
He has, but I mean, this is one. I'm so confused by this because one of my favorite things to do is to fade people when they step up in competition.
Sure.
Usually it takes you a try or two. You're not quite ready. You don't really understand what that next level is until you actually do it. So you think you're ready, and unless you're Johnny freaking Walker, who steps into the UFC and head kicks everybody to death, you're just not ready yet. You got to take that first L, and then you come back stronger.
I think that's especially true when they're training at a gym that's not packed with UFC, caliber fighters.
Absolutely. Coming from a small gym where they're the star, where they're the big dog on campus.
When somebody takes a massive step up in competition and they're training at a place where they were the superstar just for making it into the UFC to begin with.
Absolutely.
Super fade.
Well, and especially when you get undefeated, 10-1, 11-1.
Yeah.
They don't know what defeat looks like.
Right.
They don't know what it feels like to have someone handle them.
Yep.
And honestly, I'm having a hard time with this one because I want to bet on Gilbert Melendez.
Right.
This is the spot that you do that kind of thing. He's 3-1.
Yeah.
And look at his last 4 fights. He fought Pettis, Eddie Alvarez, Edson Barboza, and then Jeremy Stevens.
And if you go back a little bit further than that, you got names, little known names like Diego and Benson Henderson and Josh Thompson.
Guys, nobody knows.
Nobody's ever heard of these guys.
And, I mean, I know he's older. He's 37. And that's when you get that heart-to-heart moment where you're like, dude, maybe you should hang it up.
Rogan Shaw moment.
You're on a 4-fight losing streak. You just got knocked out. But he hasn't been knocked out.
Nope.
He got subbed by one of the most explosive submission guys in the game in Anthony Pettis. And he took the other 3 who are all knockout artists to the cards.
Yep.
I mean,
the fact that he went in against those with Eddie and Edson and Jeremy and went 3 full rounds with all of them, took it to the decision cards. Now he's had almost a full 2 years off.
Yeah, he's been out for a long time, and that's something at his age.
Right.
I worry about their health. I'm like, did you finally break down?
Right.
And or we've seen this before where they've been fighting injured for years, and they go, I got out and had a surgery, and now that I've had that surgery, I feel amazing.
Yep.
Like we've seen that before. I'm struggling to come up with a specific example off the top of my head, but I know there have been fighters that have done that the time away was something that they've literally never had because they just keep fighting and push through and go for it.
Yep.
I honestly hope Gil turns this thing into a war.
Me too.
If he can get inside and throw bombs like he does, I mean, this is where you get the young kid who gets his first real taste of adversity. And when Gil Melendez goes to your body, how do you react to that?
Well, and Gil's such a well-rounded guy. I mean, I hope that he makes it a war, not only for his sake, but also for this other kid's sake.
Yeah.
The chance, I mean, if you tell me that Allen wins in a 3-round decision against Gil Melendez, that's so much name cred for him versus him coming out and landing a shot on Gil's chin in the first round and knocking him out. Everybody goes, oh, that was his 5th loss in a row.
5th loss in a row.
He's 37 years old. Cool name, but whatever.
You're right.
But
if he schools him for 3-4 rounds, that means
these guys go back and forth and they're fighting to keep the fight where they want it to be. And Gil, they're clinching, they're against the cage, they're on the ground, they're scrambling, they're back up, they're throwing bombs. This could be whoever comes out of it. Both guys will come out of it better.
Yeah.
For having had it.
The only thing that I'm really hoping we don't see is ring rust Gil Melendez.
Absolutely.
Because if he comes out and he hasn't been in there and he's not comfortable and he isn't healed up,
right?
And he's, I don't know, maybe he needs a paycheck. Maybe he's at the BJ Penn status where he just wants to get one more. He really thinks he can. He hopes he can.
Because Gilbert's got the wrong heart for that.
Exactly.
Because Gilbert will die in there before he puts on a bad show for the fans.
He reminds me of Diego Sanchez.
Absolutely.
And that's where honestly I want to see him
fight when those two fought each other.
Oh my god, that was so good. I want to see him force that kind of a war because he still has the chin for it. He can get in there and trade with this kid and put him on the back foot because he can take a shot.
Yep.
And that's really where I feel like he stands the best chance of winning.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe another one where I go nuts and I sprinkle on it a little bit just for funsies.
The odds are there for you.
It's true.
The odds are there for you.
The last 2 cards have been so chalky. So many like really big favorites. And you know what? I say that the last 3 cards have been that way. And I'm so pissed off about it because I don't like stringing together 3 and 4 favorites for parlays.
Sure.
If I'm going to do a big parlay, I want a big score on it. I don't want to get even money on a 4-team parlay.
No.
That just doesn't sound like a good deal to me.
Right.
And I should have parlayed my face off the last card.
Right.
I went 10-2 on fight predictions on last week's card.
Nice.
And could have done 3, 4, 5, 7-teamers and just would have made a killing. But instead I hunted the props and ended up losing a unit.
Gotcha.
Well, now we pony up the $60 through the double damn paywall on ESPN Plus, and we finally get to the main card of UFC 239. Can you believe that Francis Ngannou and Jr. was supposed to be on this card?
That's insane. It's insane that they would have ever considered having this on the same.
We're talking about how damn good it is.
Yeah.
And it had Francis and Jr. on the card too.
Craziness. Crazy. Hey, UFC, get it together. You hate money, apparently, throwing all these fights on the same card.
You know what? I've said that for a long time, that we will get these little, like, I don't even know how to describe it, but you'll get a card that's just not that great. And it's got maybe one intriguing fight on it.
Yeah.
And the rest of them you really kind of don't care about. But me as first off as a gambling degenerate and then a mixed martial arts fan, if 2 people are punching each other in the parking lot, I'll go watch and I'll throw $5 on it.
Yep.
But I will watch all those fights. But if they chopped this one into 4 pieces, you could have 4 solid pay-per-views in a row and then sprinkle the young up-and-comers around between them instead of having one giant fight and then like 3 weeks of drought.
If you would have told me that any of the last 4 fights on this card were headlining a fight night, I would have been over. Well, first off, the last 2 fights here have no business on a fight night card. But any of the top 4 fights are legit headliner fights.
They could headline their own card.
Absolutely.
So speaking of Diego Sanchez, he kicks off the main card and he's facing a reinvigorated Mike Chiesa. How do you feel about this one?
You know, I feel a lot about Diego like I do about Gilbert. And I'm actually going to go wild here because I've made a decision that I'm willing to lose the money to be able to have the fun to do it. I'm going to do the old fart parlay.
Oh, okay.
I'm going Gilbert and Diego.
Oh, shit.
And I'm rooting for my boys. I'm rooting for the baton to remain in the hands of the old dudes. And, 2 fan favorites, 2 of my personal favorites, 2 guys who came in and delivered enough value when they fought to where I feel like if I bought the next 5 pay-per-views and they were all blacked out in my area, I still would have been money ahead. I'm in.
So if you're talking about parlaying both of them,
Yep.
which okay, so first official pick on the podcast for my cousin Judd here
Horrible pick.
is
Don't do it.
parlay Diego Sanchez with Gilbert Melendez. You've got plus 270, plus 310. You're looking at a 14-1 payout
And
on a
it
2-teamer.
should be. And it should be. It should be a 14-1 payout because the chance of that hitting are ridiculous.
You know what's funny? I've actually seen a lot of people on Twitter picking Diego Sanchez. Usually I'm the only bastard crazy enough to pull that card. And I've seen several people pick him.
I actually
here.
have a lot of respect for Michael Chiesa. I think he's got some skills. He feels like almost like a tweener to me.
What do you mean?
Well, okay, so in basketball, if you've got a guy who's not tall enough or big enough to be a center, but he's maybe a little bit bigger than what you'd expect in a power forward,
Okay.
call him a tweener. He doesn't quite fit. Chiesa's got legit grappling, but the top level guys aren't scared, aren't waking up in the night with cold sweats at the idea of being on the mat with Chiesa.
He's not Damian Maya.
Exactly right. He can strike. He's a long guy. Mm-hmm. You know, if he gets a jab, he definitely should have a jab in his arsenal. But he
if you get to the UFC, you better be able to throw a jab.
But he's got some high quality wins. This is a guy who's bringing skills to the table, right?
Yeah.
But
he came off the Ultimate Fighter. He won the Ultimate Fighter, beat Ali Quinta back in the day. I mean, he's got a decent resume.
But there's something about being, hitting a guy like Diego with everything you've got, and watching him grin and run at you afterwards.
Yeah.
That I want to see what happens. And Diego's got a ground game. Diego's got legit credentials as background. We all know him as a guy who's just throwing hands and biting down on his mouthpiece. But I don't think he's scared of Michael Chiesa's wrestling to the point where he's not going to be able to let his hands go.
Yeah, and that's a point I've heard other people make as well. I'm actually really high on Chiesa in this fight.
Yeah.
Did I show you the picture of him at 170?
No.
Okay.
No, I forgot. Yeah, that's right. He's moving up for this.
So he moved up to 170 and he fought Carlos Condit.
That's right. Yeah.
And which broke my heart, by the way. I was on Carlos Condit, and Carlos Condit was a decent-sized dog in that fight. And it just coming back after the long layoff and stuff like that. I've been a Carlos Condit fan my entire life. He's one of my top 5 favorite fighters.
Sure.
Love the dude. And he had Chiesa in trouble in the first round. I mean, locked up a gorgeous arm bar. I mean, the transition for it was so fast and so perfect, and just couldn't quite pull it off.
Couldn't close the show.
Exactly. And then ended up losing the thing, and that about killed me. But since that fight, he's had time to start filling out in his new weight class. And that's something I feel like you see a lot when these guys finally decide to stop cutting all that weight and get themselves up to a new weight class. They just need a little bit of time. And then once they get that time and they really get settled in at the new weight class, that's when you see what they're capable of. So like Motown Phenom, Kevin Lee.
Yeah.
He just did the same thing. And
Good move, Kevin.
He got handled by RDA, which...
Sure.
Nice underdog cash for myself. I'm going to pat myself on the back one more time. Thank you. I think that he's going to look better next time.
Yeah.
He steps up. He's facing the top 5 guy, top 4 guy in the division. And it's his first time at 170. He's not used to carrying the extra weight yet. He hasn't had time to fill out yet.
There's plenty of flux going on with Kevin as well.
Exactly.
I'm still high on Kevin's future.
I completely agree. He's still trying to find a gym home.
Yep.
So I'm struggling to find the picture here. So why don't you talk about something for a second?
He looks like a monster. He looks good carrying the additional weight. Well, I'm happy for him. I feel like Michael's kind of coming into his prime. When we saw him on The Ultimate Fighter, he was a younger guy. He was in his 20s. He's 31 years old now. I think he should be the favorite, which he is. I think that Arnold Allen should be a favorite over 37-year-old Gilbert Melendez. Mm-hmm. But one of the fun parts of gambling, when you're not putting your mortgage or your pink slip or your kid's college fund on it, is the idea that not only am I celebrating going up, $10 or $20 if I win this, but also you're celebrating that you saw something and you hit the odds. The payout is holy goodness gracious. That old man parlay is looking like it should be at higher odds. No, he looks great. This is his weight class.
He looks like a 185. He's got like legit abs. His arms are thick as hell. He's got veins popping out everywhere. Like he looks like a skinny boy at 155. He never had muscle like this.
Got a haircut. I'm a fan. Yep.
Respect the beard.
Where are the coaches and the managers at who aren't convincing these guys to move up earlier?
You know what? It's like a wave that's happening right now. I mean, Rockhold is moving up.
Yep.
Weinman is moving up.
Yep.
We saw Thiago move up. Now he's at 205. You've got Chiesa and Lee that are moving up. You're starting to see that a lot of lightweights are starting to trend towards 170. And
that Cowboy took a step up.
He did.
Good for him. Yep.
It's, you know what, man? It's one of those things where I think there's this old school mentality of if you're the bigger guy in there, you're going to win. And then we got guys like Dustin Poirier. We got guys like Frankie Edgar.
Yep.
That they could be the smaller fighter, and because they just never stop.
Yeah, the gas tank's huge.
It's just, it's become a big enough deal that there are enough guys that are skilled enough that size doesn't matter as much anymore. And you'd rather be at your natural weight class feeling good and go a full 15 minutes or a full 25 minutes rather than blow your wad in the first round and a half. And then just be at the mercy of your opponent.
And all throughout your training camp, being able to focus on those techniques you're working on instead of sweating it out and feeling like crap in a bathtub someplace.
And that's where I'm expecting leaps and bounds from Chiesa here because this is the first, maybe the second camp where he didn't have to weight cut the whole time. These guys do 2-a-days, 3-a-days training, and when you're cutting that much weight, you're training once a day. Or you're doing a half of a training session because you got to be on the treadmill the other half of the time. Like, they are just not developing their skills because they're trying to make the weight.
And how much of that is just a matter of that, a bunch of these guys come from some kind of a wrestling background. It's just the way that things are always done.
Yeah.
Or they're coming from boxing. Again, the way
Who
it's
cuts weight
always
in
been
boxing?
done. Oh, well, back in the day when you're an old fart, you get guys who are coming into the ring 30 pounds bigger than what they weighed in the day before.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because
it was a thing.
I didn't watch boxing when I was younger.
Yeah.
And these days, they cut like 5 pounds.
Yeah, why would they?
You know what I mean? Like, nobody cuts weight in
12
boxing.
rounds? It's
Oh
a
my
horrible
God.
idea.
How are you ever going to have the gas tank to go 12 rounds if you're cutting 15
Horrible
plus
idea.
pounds? Like, and yeah.
I'm a big fan of these guys moving up, and I forget the organization who basically effectively required it by instituting the hydration
I think that's
test.
one championship that's over in Asia.
I'm a fan. I would not be surprised if we started to see hydration tests within the next 5 years.
I think that's smart. That's going to reduce
Good
like
for
the
the
brain
fighters.
damage and stuff.
Hey,
We'll get less Mike Tyson.
exactly right. We'd all be just as excited to see these guys fighting each other at the weight class above and being healthy afterwards
Oh, absolutely.
than we would watching them fall apart in a third round because they were cutting 15 pounds.
It's true. As much as I like to see finishes,
Yeah.
I don't like to see finishes when a guy gasses out. And it's funny that we got there naturally because that's what I think happened with Diego and Mickey Gall. Mm-hmm. So I bet Diego versus Mickey Gall. He was a big, fat, juicy underdog. And Gall blew his wad. Yeah. He went out there and he landed a big shot on Diego and then went after him. He wanted that finish. And in round 2, he had nothing.
Yeah.
Diego was getting tired.
Yeah.
Diego was on top of him, beating him. And of course, it doesn't matter if Diego's tired. He still doesn't stop.
Sure.
But you could see that he was slowing down. Mm-hmm. And Gall wasn't even that busted up. It's not like we've seen some people busted up. Anybody who's ever fought Tony Ferguson,
yeah,
he doesn't look like that.
Right.
He's a little busted up, but he just can't do anything anymore.
Right.
And that's what got Diego the TKO victory in that fight.
Diego's a wild man in that sometimes you get the sense that his pressure and like aura does more damage than his hands do.
Absolutely.
He just puts the fear of God into folks when he's simply on top of you and pressuring you and you can't do anything. You knock his jaw on the other side of his head and he's like, very cool, I'm still coming forward.
I don't know how scary. We talked about Ngannou being scary with his knockout power. I don't know how you would handle that. Yeah. And that's where I've done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I played football. I've done Muay Thai. I've boxed. None of it at a very high level, but I've done it all. And I've been in there and I've gotten my ass kicked.
Yeah.
I don't know how to handle it when somebody just does not stop that way. When you're like, you've got your go-to move. You know what I mean? You're like, this always works. This works on everybody.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work on that guy. And then they're still on top of you. I wouldn't know what to do. It would shake me to my core.
Yeah.
That it's like, he's not getting tired. He's not slowing down. I've hit him with the kitchen sink.
This is going my way and it's still not going my way.
And I have no chance.
Yep.
I don't know how. I love Diego. I'm going to be real sad when he hangs it up because he's an old school legend and I love that about him.
This is horrible for a gambling podcast. But straight up, I would rather lose a unit and bet on Diego for his last fight. If that is what this is.
Yeah.
Then I would to win betting against him.
That's 1,000% fair.
That I recognize in terms of gambling, that makes me a complete degenerate. I'm a fan before I'm a gambler. But also, I don't think he's completely out of this fight. I think he still has fight in him. Mike Chiesa, I agree with you. I think all the writing's on the wall. This is a weight class for him. Mm-hmm. I'm happy for him. That he made the move. I think he's. If you were going to bet on which guy's going to win the most fights over the next 5 years, all of the money is on Chiesa.
All of it.
But this is a unique fight. It's one of those one night, who knows what happens. and I'll take the underdog on Diego. And like I say, old man degenerate parlay. And if I win, hey, if I win, trust me, I will be on Twitter bragging to everybody.
He will make a Twitter account to brag about the parlay.
Reason.
Oh, I love it. And you know what? If you do pull that off, I mean, you're gonna have a bigger winning night than anybody I know. Pulling the trigger on one play to get 14 to 1 on it.
There's no way that cashes.
But that's a fair point, though, that if you're like a casual bettor, I know people like that. Obviously, if you're a serious bettor, you can't let your heart sway you that way. And there are spots that I have intentionally passed on because I know I'm betting with my heart.
Yeah.
I know I've got an attachment to this fighter that I'm like, I can't see this fight clearly. It's not possible for me to do that, so I have to stay away. I've gotten better about it. But I can completely understand betting on your boy because he's your boy.
Yep.
That makes total sense to me.
Yep. Well, with these guys fighting back to back, I'm like, old man parlay, it's in the cards. The universe is speaking to me.
The old man parlay is going to need to become a thing.
If it hits, I'm making a t-shirt.
I love it. So now we're getting into the real meat and potatoes, which Jan Blachowicz is welcoming Luke Rockhold to 205. We were just talking about people moving up in weight class, people looking for new life at the weight they were supposed to fight at. And I can't believe I didn't think to use Rockhold as an example when I was listing off the fighters doing that. You know what? Never I did. I said Rockhold and Weinman. Sorry.
Yeah.
Scratch that.
Did. He was on there.
So he's a massive 185er. He's the guy. You know what I mean? Every time he gets in there, you're like, what? Yeah. And so I don't know if filling out is going to be an issue for him at 205.
I don't think it's going to take the time.
I don't think so either. But he's been off for a while. I mean, after what Yoel did to him.
Well, I also had to get his shin fixed.
That's true. I kind of forgot about that.
As he said, had a vagina on his leg.
Where did he say that?
He was talking to Ariel.
Okay, Helwani?
Yeah. Yep. He was like, hey, somebody checks a kick and I've got a vagina on my leg.
That's hilarious.
Great line.
Shout out to Ariel Helwani.
Doing
the nose.
Doing the thing.
So, okay. I did my podcast. I already gave all my opinions out.
Yep.
Let's hear what you think. What are you looking at here?
So, I'm not sold on Jan.
Okay.
I think he's got skills. I wouldn't want to see him in an alley. However, I'm not sold on he's the one-punch knockout artist. He's going to overpower Luke, who's been training with DC, who's a heavyweight, who's been fighting at light heavyweight. I don't think that the weight jump is going to put this guy at a power disadvantage significantly.
Okay.
Also, I'm looking at his record, and I'm going, okay, tell me who he has knocked out. Obviously, Luke has a chin that we're all a little sketchy about.
Yeah.
I don't know that him not weight cutting is going to take away the threat of him getting caught and going, and having a problem. But I think Luke is a more talented, more well-rounded fighter. Mm-hmm. I think he's finally fighting in his weight class. I think him allowing the light heavyweight class to go on without him simply because his boy was in the weight class. Mm-hmm. Wild respect for that. I can't believe how long that went that he was doing that. But I'm looking at I'm going, okay, let's see. He's got decision win, submission win. I don't think he has a chance to sub Luke.
I'll give you that.
I think Luke will do just fine grappling.
Luke's a wizard on the ground. Yeah. He really is.
And also, when I've seen him fight, when I've seen Jan fight, I don't think he likes getting hit to the body. I love Luke's body kick. I think Luke absolutely has I think this is a great fight for Luke in that it's a ranked guy. It's not a gimme fight by any stretch of the imagination. No. But I think Luke does this. I think Luke does this well. I think he not outclasses the guy as if the guy shouldn't be in the ring with him. But yeah. I think this is a good matchup for Luke in that I think he's more athletic. I think he's got more buttons to push, more cheat codes that he can call on than what Jan has. There's a chance always that Luke can get touched on the chin and have a rough night.
I mean, Bisping did it.
But I look at the guys who have knocked out Luke. Go through the list. Tell me which one of those guys wouldn't be 3-1 favorites over Jan.
Well, probably Bisping.
Well, okay, Bisping fair, but when Bisping hits somebody, it's problematic. When Bisping lands a power shot, Bisping can throw hands.
It's so funny though, because everyone, for the longest time, people called him pillow fists. Like, he didn't knock out anybody, and then at the end of his career, he was like, "I'm gonna sit on my punches."
He sat on his punches. Exactly right.
He totally changed it around, like at the very end of his career, and all of a sudden he was hurting people. It was the craziest thing. And that, you know what? That's something I love about MMA. Is there's so many moving parts. You tweak one little aspect of your game, and everything changes. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yep, and MMA math doesn't work at all.
It doesn't. Not even close.
Yeah, I mean, the two, Bisping and Rockhold split a couple of fights. Awesome.
I'm so happy Bisping got that back.
Oh, it's so nice for Bisping to be able to have had a belt. That's cool.
He was one of those fighters. He was a Donald Cerrone for me, where I'm like, this guy needs to get to the belt. Yeah. Like, even if he didn't win it, he just needed his title shot. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He'd been there. He'd done his time. He'd paid his dues. He'd beaten all the names.
Talk the talk, walk the walk.
Realistically, back in the day, I think he beat Chael Sonnen. In that split decision fight where Chael got it, I think Bisping won that fight.
That was a close fight.
It was a very close fight. I thought Bisping won it, and it just killed me.
That was one of my favorite post-fight interviews. Was when Chael was as honest as he can be and said, if he had any idea how bad he hurt me, I would not have won that
It's
fight.
funny you say that. I remember that too. And that was, when is Chael ever that honest and respectful of an opponent?
Right.
I mean, he
Mostly
talked about the Brazilian Nogueira brothers trying to feed a carrot to the bus.
Right.
Like,
awesome.
He doesn't pay anyone respect.
Awesome.
And he was giving Bisping his due. So something actually happened there.
Shout out to Anderson Silva inviting Chael over for barbecue.
Oh my God.
That was epic.
Such a perfect response. Chael's talking all the shit and Silva's like, come on over.
Oh.
It's normal.
If you weren't watching the build up to that fight, Chael was poking the bear and talking about how after the fight that was going to be in Brazil that he was going to smack Anderson's wife on the rear end and tell her to make a mistake. And so after the fight, Anderson beats him and then invites him over for a steak. Great line.
Oh, good stuff. Oh, I missed that stuff.
I'm not a huge Luke Rockhold fan. I understand the folks who say he looks like a frat boy, models in his underwear, and is kind of off-putting for some folks. But
he's a complete dick.
Fair point. He definitely comes across that way. Now, I'm a big Brian Callen fan. Brian Callen says the funniest guy to be in a room with. So I don't know how to measure this out. But I think he's a heck of a talented fighter. I think he's been fighting under his weight class for a while and put together a heck of a record. This is not somebody who's past their prime. Mm-hmm. 34, coming off a much-needed rest, got his injuries taken care of. Hopefully, we'll see how that all plays out. Mm-hmm. But I'm just not sold that this is the Jan is that guy. Okay,
and that's fair. That's fair.
If he was fighting Yoel Romero again, okay, well, it's a different fight.
Yoel's my boy. No, but I'm glad we're disagreeing on a fight finally. Yeah. But I'm gonna be on Yan here. Yep. About damn time, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna be on Yan here, just because I don't believe in Luke's chin. That's the one thing. And I know Yan.
Why would you?
I know Yan is not the power puncher, but he's fast. And I think if he gets a combo in, if he gets 3-piece and a soda, as Jorge Masvidal would say, if he gets 3 or 4 shots in, just boom, 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 I don't think Luke's chin can hold up anymore. And especially at 205 where they're just a little bit bigger. I mean, I don't know if there's any 205er that's as explosive as Yoel Romero was, but I mean, they weigh a little bit more.
Absolutely.
But one of the biggest things that I can't stand about Luke is just his personality. He was on a show, Millionaire Matchmaker. Miranda, my wife made me watch Millionaire Matchmaker, and Luke Rockhold was on an episode, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Who do you remember the girl that they tried to pair him up with?
No, I don't remember. I just remember it not going very well.
Wasn't he like yeah, he was a complete jerk, right? Like they had how they have like the cameras, like the real cameras, they get like the nice clean shots of what's going on. and then they have like the second set of cameras that films the camera crew or whatever. Sure. And he was like saying something to the girl.
I don't remember. I think actually he got kicked off the show.
That's right. See, he's on a reality TV show and literally gets kicked off of the show.
What are you doing, Luke? Seriously.
And
John Hamm looking dude, why are you on a reality matchmaker show?
Right. And you know what? I was so excited because I've been forced to watch this stupid millionaire matchmaker dating show with my wife for 3 seasons, and suddenly an MMA fighter who I know and am kind of a fan of is on the show. He was a complete stick in the mud, didn't want to do anything fun with the girls whatsoever, and then comes on to her so hard and made it blatantly obvious the one thing that he was after, that the lady that runs the show kicked him off and told him he could never come back. I was like, okay, I don't like that guy anymore.
That's hilarious. Luke, my biggest concern is, now I'll give you, there's reason to question Luke's chin. He's been clipped. He's been knocked out. It's happened more than once. But I'm not sure Jan's that guy. I think this is the matchup. My biggest concern is not his chin. My biggest concern is Luke overlooking this fight, which is wild to me. And because as much as I say I don't think Jan's the 205 version of Yoel Romero, I don't see overlooking the guy.
That's a very good point, because I mean Luke lost his belt for overlooking Bisping.
Yes.
So
and he's already calling out John Jones. He's already
he's beefing with Lionheart.
What are you doing?
Did you see that?
This fight? Yeah.
Okay. That's a fight I want to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great fight.
You know what? Honestly, I think that fight happens win, lose, or draw here. Because if as long as he doesn't retire, if he loses to Yan, both him and Anthony are coming off a loss. Winner rebounds.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Okay. And
then if he comes off of a win and they go, he probably gets a title shot at that point because he was a champion and the number 1 contender at 185. They might shove him straight into John Jones at that point. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of other options that are kind of circling the waters at 205 these days, which I love. I'm glad the division is finally getting back to where it's entertaining.
Yeah, needed Weidman, needed Rockhold.
It did. But I just really want to see Rockhold and Anthony smash the beef. I want to see them go at it. And
that's a great match.
If Rockhold can get through those 2 guys, then sure, throw him in against Jones. Try and avenge your teammate. See if you can pull it off. I love that.
Good luck with that.
Absolutely. So, what do you make of Funky?
I think this matchup is probably the matchup of the most perfect nicknames for the 2 fighters that are in.
Okay.
Funky. I'm a big fan of Ben Askren. I think he's got an element to his game that's going to take a while for folks to figure out. I agree with you. I think that as much of a fan of Robbie as I am, I think that stoppage was the right call. I think he was out for a split second.
Yeah. And he just wasn't going anywhere.
Right. I think that Ben almost showed his hand that a lot of folks were wondering what happens when he gets hit. What happens when he actually takes damage? Well, we saw that he keeps coming. And he keeps coming against somebody doing damage to him like Robbie Lawler. Whether you want to say that's an early stoppage, let's just chalk it up. It was an early stoppage. Let's go with that. Still, he's face down on the canvas with Robbie Lawler smashing his skull.
Yeah.
And he's not looking for a way out. He's looking for a way forward. Big Ben Askren fan.
Yeah.
Big Ben Askren fan.
That's a great way to put it. And not only did he take Robbie Lawler's best shot, he took a Rampage style slam. He took an Andrade versus Rose Namajunas neck breaking, life ending slam.
Welcome to the UFC. You're a wrestler. Very cool.
And he rolled over and got guard.
Yep.
Did you hear his interview on Joe Rogan's podcast?
Askren's back well before? Oh, yeah. When he was fighting to get into the UFC?
He was talking about how his coaches... You know what? I'm misremembering this. It was Tyrone Woodley that was talking about Ben's chin.
Yeah, because they trained together.
Yes.
They're boys.
And by the way, Tyrone Woodley is so much more entertaining when Ben Askren is around.
Oh, yeah?
He is so loose and he's funny. And I mean, like, when Tyron Woodley's in front of the camera, it's like he's trying real hard to be cool. It's like he's really got that I'm a badass and you need to know it type of air about him.
Right.
As soon as you put Funky next to him, he can't stop smiling.
Oh, that's hilarious.
He's a high school kid with his best buddy, and he giggles and he says stupid stuff. It's really hilarious. They did a whole bunch of interviews right around the Robbie Lawler fight, because I think Woodley was on that card later on as well, or he was on the next card or something. They were both getting ready for something right around the same time, and so they were doing tandem interviews left and right. And on one of them, I think it wasn't supposed to be a tandem interview. I think it was Ariel Helwani. And Ben Askren, like, jumped in and grabbed a headset and, like, completely dive-bombed the interview and turned it into something ridiculous. It's great. Tyrone Woodley is way more entertaining when Funky's around.
It's got to be said that the top two in the world at giving other people unwanted nicknames have got to be the current president of the United States and Ben Askren. Him calling Usman Marty and convincing everybody that Jorge's name is George, wild.
I love
it's such a move.
It's
credit where it's deserved. It's a move.
Absolutely. And did you see, okay, so when he went to London, when the whole 3-piece and a soda thing happened, he did a fan interview session, and I don't know what it was, but the Londoners were, maybe it was because he was going after their boy. He was trying to set up a fight with Till.
Yep.
They were all against him.
Sure.
And he was doing an open mic Q&A type thing.
Yeah.
And he was firing off. I mean, they were coming after him, and he was rolling with the punches and firing back just as hard as he got it. And it was maybe one of the funniest Q&As I've ever seen. And maybe 90% of the Londoners referred to him as a curly-headed fuck.
There you go. That's what it was.
Every single one of them that got on the microphone. So I just wonder how you're gonna handle Till, and you're a curly-headed fuck. Like every single one of them.
Let them have it, Londoners.
So what I love is the very next day was the UFC fight. He shows up in a t-shirt with an outline of his hair, and it says curly-headed fuck on the t-shirt. He takes everything you want to throw against him, and he owns it and makes it hilarious. You can't stop this guy.
Nope.
I love him.
Coming forward.
And you know what? He's another one that I steered clear of the line. I know a lot of sharp people that are on Masvidal just because of what he's done lately and the big bomb that he landed on Till. And I mean, can you believe he's another one of these guys? He used to be a 155er, and he's filled out at 170.
Jorge's awesome. I love Masvidal. He's a great fighter to watch. Anytime I see him on the card, it's like seeing one of the Diaz brothers on the card. You're just instantly like, yeah, absolutely, I'm down to watch whoever he's fighting for whatever reason, whether there's beef or there's not beef. And typically with Jorge, of course there's beef.
He makes beef.
Yep. And one of the best lines on the Rogan experience ever was him telling Rogan that people have known that he doesn't take shit since before they knew rainbows had color. That was awesome. But I think this comes down to whether he can keep the fight on the feet or not. And every single wrestling credential that Ben Askren has says probably not. Yeah. Now, will it be easy takedowns? No. But is he going to be able to keep Askren's body from laying all over him up against the cage, in the clinch, on the ground till back up? I don't see it. And I don't know if he's going to have the gas tank to do that for 3 rounds and still have the power in his hands after, towards the second half of the fight. Absolutely. That Ben will have to continue coming forward.
And speaking of Askren's body, how is this guy a professional athlete?
I'm telling you, it makes me want to dust off some gloves and get into something. I love the body.
Him and Roy Nelson, you're like, I can do this.
Absolutely.
You apparently don't have to have six-pack abs.
The guy looks like he could fight at 135 if he got in shape.
You know what? I didn't even think about that, but I mean, maybe he could make 155. He's got some extra on him.
Got a little bit. Yep.
Did you see the watermelon video?
Absolutely.
The double crushing with it, like, oh man.
But he's got that, he's got that wrestling strength.
Yeah.
He, it set him on a single spot and see who can lift the most in a maxing out competition. I don't know if he's got that kind of build, but give him a million watermelons and his arms are still going to squeeze. I have more faith in him being able to wrestle in the second half of the second round, in the third round, and his mentality coming forward than I do in Jorge being able to maintain that power that he would need to put him down into that third round.
I completely agree. And I think one of the big things here that favors Askren is that it's a 3-rounder.
Agreed.
I mean,
agreed. Because the last thing you want to do is be tired standing in front of Jorge Masvidal.
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. Jorge he's the guy that will pour it on and just not stop when he sees that you're wilting. I mean, Askren's around. Holy crap. Did I make a play? Did I make an official play on this?
I don't know if you did.
Because Askren is a minus 230 favorite, minus 245 favorite. And over on 5 Dimes, you can get Askren by decision at minus 106. Practically even money on Askren to win this thing by decision. Mm-hmm. Jorge Masvidal went a full 3 rounds with Damian freaking Maia and didn't give up the sub.
Yep.
And I know Askren has got some ground and pound TKOs, but Masvidal has literally never been TKO'd.
I think if you were going to lay under Askren for 15 minutes, you're probably gonna take some damage underneath of him. I do think that Masvidal is going to be able to defend himself enough to where he's not going to be under him long enough to be necessarily beaten out. I like the Askren in a decision in this fight.
Mm-hmm. Everybody needs to, if you're still with us, everyone needs to keep an eye on my Twitter. That might be an official pick because even money on Askren by decision, I mean, I didn't necessarily see him finishing Robbie Lawler, but like we talked about, that may have been a bit of a fluke.
Yeah.
And I don't see Jorge giving up his neck like that. If Ben gets on your neck, he'll end it with anybody.
Well, and to be fair to Robbie, if you had the hype train that was Ben Askren coming into that fight, and you feel his feet coming off the ground and realize that you're going to slam this dude, you're going to slam this hype train onto the mat and then drop bombs on him, how hard would it have been to go, maybe I shouldn't blow all of my wad right now?
Yeah.
And put myself in a position where I'm going to have to be sucking a little bit of wind when he starts to come back.
Well, and Robbie's a good wrestler too, though. And that's the thing is,
I think everybody's a good wrestler until they're wrestling with Ben Askren.
I think you're absolutely right. I feel like he's damn near a Khabib.
Yeah.
I mean, he's undefeated. He does wrestle. He's got those TKOs, and if you want to say those are in smaller shows, not the UFC level stuff. Okay, so maybe he's not going to TKO Jorge Masvidal. Maybe he's not going to TKO Kamaru Usman.
Right. Agreed.
But he can wrestle with them, So by decision, even money, that might be a good play.
Yep.
Wow. All right. Co-main event of the evening. The ladies, back to the ladies. Amanda Lionheart Nunez going up against Holly freaking Holm, the preacher's daughter, which I love that, by the way. I'm growing up a church boy myself, having kind of a mean streak myself, always wanting to do mixed martial arts, always wanting to hurt people. Okay, so my dad used to wrestle with me. Mm-hmm. And anybody can ask him. I would always try to hurt him. We would just be like goofing off, wrestling around. He's trying to pin me down. And I wanted to dig my chin into his back. I wanted to dig my elbow into his thigh. Like, I used to do these little things that would just hurt.
But you had to know you got those because your father would bring in the old man tricks when he would wrestle.
For sure. He was
would
dirty.
Not shave for a day or two and then rub his stubble on you. I mean, that's the way Uncle Jim was.
That was the worst. I'd have like these red rashes on my neck for like 3 days afterward that you couldn't touch. But it's funny to me because I was supposed to be this good boy and I had this streak in me that made me want to hurt people. And when I picked up jiu-jitsu, it was just the most perfect fitting piece in my life. Because I was like, wait. You're telling me that I get to do something physically competitive and I win by choking them unconscious. Mm-hmm. That's a thing? Yep. I can do that? It was
no law enforcement involved. Yeah.
perfect. And Holly Holm I feel like she's the exact same way. She's literally a preacher's daughter. That's where she got the nickname.
Right.
And she's a knockout artist. She's a kickboxing and boxing multiple time world champion.
Yep.
I love it. The girl's got a mean streak, but she's so like cute and sweet in all of her interviews and stuff. You're talking about girls that are cute as a button. Like, I know Holly's not Paige Van Zant. She's
Right.
not the hottest girl in the UFC.
The strawberry, blondish, freckled type.
But she's so sweet.
Absolutely.
She's so sweet.
Well, and you know, it's rough standing next to somebody like Nunez. Amanda's an absolute train coming.
Yeah.
But Holly's strong. She's, you know, running over her is going to be a tough sell.
Absolutely.
You know, okay, so you've got Cyborg. Cyborg, it is what it is. It's an anomaly coming at you.
5-round decision, though.
Yep. Yep.
Cyborg kills basically everybody,
Absolutely.
and Holly was able to stand with her.
Yep. I'm a Holly fan, and a great judge of distance. Not only with the hands though, but she's got kicks.
Yeah.
Wicked kicks.
Rhonda can tell you about the kick.
Yes. Well, if her jaw's back together, she might be able to tell you about the kicks. But this is, it is kind of a wild idea that you're having the two women who beat Ronda Rousey fighting.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's kind of a throwback.
Like,
yeah.
all these years later, the two that really just cemented the end of Rousey, they're going at it.
You know, I'm a big fan of women's MMA. I will say the one knock, if somebody wants to find a knock on it, which I don't know why you would, you're a hater if you do, it's not as deep. It hasn't been around as long, which is why you're getting somebody fighting the double champ who's 2-4 in their last 6 fights.
Yeah.
Holly Holm she's fought the top of the competition ladder. She hasn't always come out on top. She kind of came into this game a little bit later into the MMA side of things.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, I think the sky's the limit on what her career would have been had MMA been what it was earlier on in her career, and she had gone that route rather than kickboxing.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think this one's a matter of distance management to me, because if they're at kicking distance, Holly Holm's got an advantage. Mm-hmm. If they're anywhere else, Amanda Nunez is a nightmare.
You know, and I think that Nunez is going to enjoy a nice hefty speed advantage. And I think that the distance management is going to fall to her. She's going to get the edge there because she can close and then space quicker than Holly Holm will be able to. I think she'll be able to stay out of kicking range. The way she darts in and blitzes, she'll be able to land some shots. And then if she doesn't want to be in there anymore, she'll get all the way out before Holly can catch her with a kick, I think.
Call me crazy, but trying to kick her in the head over those shoulders of hers.
Oh
Good
my
luck
gosh.
with that.
She keeps her shoulders up so well
Her
when she's
shoulders,
boxing.
Yeah, top of her shoulders start at the top of her ears. But I think she's the obvious favorite in this fight. She should be the obvious favorite in this fight. But this is a fun fight. I mean, this is a legit
really
fun fight.
Absolutely.
Fun fight.
Now, you want to talk about a fun fight, though, was Nunez, 1 minute war with Cyborg. Who saw that coming?
I'll tell you what, GOAT. Just the best that's ever done. Nunez is just racking them up.
Absolutely. The only two names that she doesn't have on her list are Holly Holm, and she dropped Kat Zingano. Way back when she first got in, Kat got one over on her. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Kat never got the belt, and I love Kat. I love Kat. But she's not title challenger anymore.
Right.
So you can kind of draw a line through that one. Holly Holm is the only Mount Rushmore of women's MMA fighter that Nunez has not beaten.
Yep. That's fair. This is going to be an exciting fight. Holly Holm is nobody's pushover. She's had, I don't know, little somebody named Valentina Shevchenko, that she went 5-round of war with.
Yeah.
Misha Cotter, Misha.
That was insane, by the way.
I think you nailed it when we were talking the other day. You compared that to GSP getting caught by Matt Hughes.
Yeah.
It's absolutely what happened there. She would, I think, other than getting caught, I think she had that. I think she had the advantage in that fight. But I'm very much looking forward to this. If you told me this was the main event, I'm in. If you told me that Askren versus Masvidal was the main event, I'm in. We've said it over and over and over again. Loaded card. This is a tough fight to bet on, though.
Absolutely.
I'm
I
having
agree.
a hard time. I'm jazzed for the fight. Having a hard time talking myself into believing that Holly Holm is got a is going to come away with the W here.
She's gotten all the way up to plus 305.
All right. Well, we're getting closer. But I'm looking at this. I'm thinking that Amanda wins this fight. I don't think that Holly will be able to control distance long enough. The other problem is I think there's a grappling advantage. Amanda has the hands that allow her to not ever have to show it. I think she can actually grapple.
Yeah. I completely agree. And so two things, backtrack for just a second. I think you meant Matt Serra was the one that caught GSP.
No way. Matt Hughes caught GSP.
Well, so are you talking about when GSP got his first title shot and lost and had to go back to the drawing board?
Yeah.
Okay, that was Matt Hughes. I thought you meant when GSP got clipped, unexpectedly,
because
that was Matt Serra coming off the Ultimate Fighter that got
Matt
him,
Serra caught him
the 1 in a million
ridiculous.
shot coming off the Ultimate Fighter, takes the belt from freaking GSP.
Ridiculous.
UFC couldn't have scripted that one any better, and I'm sure they were just shaking their heads going, what did we just do? We just killed our GSP, and then he came back better than ever. That was... You can't write this stuff, which is what I love about it. And people say it's fake, but you can't. The storylines are amazing.
Yep.
The other thing is, before we hop off to the big show, who's your favorite women's MMA fighter? I mean...
That's a tough one. I was so happy to see women's MMA come into what it was with Ronda leading the charge. Not having started the charge, there's a lot of women who got this ball rolling. I was a Gina Carano fan. Huge fan.
Who wasn't a Gina Carano fan?
For multiple reasons. None of them being sexist. But I was a big Ronda Rousey fan. And it was so heartbreaking when the world shattered and you realized that there was another generation coming along. That was, watching Holly wreck Ronda was like watching Matt Hughes versus Gracie back in the day. I was no, I don't want to see this. It may be real, but I don't want to believe. I want to believe in Santa Claus for a little bit longer. But
you couldn't have described that any better.
Probably overall, not to say that I believe she's the best MMA fighter ever fight.
I didn't say best. I said favorite.
Miesha Tate.
Okay.
Cupcake. Awesome. Got heart for days.
Absolutely. She's another one that I'm glad got the belt. Kind of like Bisping. I'm glad she got it.
Yep.
Just for one fight, she was the champ.
Yep. Her and Ronda going back and forth on the Ultimate Fighter for that season was awesome.
That was good.
I
forgot they did that.
And I think that her personality came through. Not just her personality. It's not just that she was willing to turn the other cheek. She was willing to turn the other cheek and biding her time for the chance to get in and get some with Ronda in the cage.
Absolutely.
Now, it did not go her way, but I just love the fact that she was licking her chops for the chance to do that. And by far the best combination of walkout music had to have been that fight. Her coming out to the Katy Perry song, I'm a champion, yada yada yada. And Ronda coming out to I don't give a damn about your reputation. Was awesome. That was hilarious.
Their songs really embodied them in that walkout. That's a good point. Oh man. Okay.
So this fight, if I'm going to bet on this fight, I don't know, even at 3-1, I feel like the props are going to be more interesting to me personally in this one.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you wanted to get some of the more, fun props, Nunez by KO is plus 165.
How is that plus money?
Right? She just KO'd Cyborg.
Doesn't get knocked out by Nunez.
She just KO'd Cyborg, and you're getting plus money.
I'm absolutely in on putting money at plus money, dog money on Nunez to win by knockout.
Now, Holly Holm wins by submission is plus 21.95.
And just send the Brinks truck to your house if you're willing to bet on Holly by sub.
Absolutely.
But am I crazy? Is Amanda Nunez a black belt? I think
I
she's
believe
a
she
legit
is.
grappler. I don't see Holly.
Now, I think that Holly may have a long-term strength advantage.
Agreed.
I feel like she's more of the tank in this situation, whereas Nunez has an explosion advantage.
Yep.
So if Holly is able to weather the storm for rounds 1 and 2, she's got actually a very solid grappling game. We saw that in her last fight. She used it to beat the young up-and-comer, what's her name? Megan Anderson.
Yeah.
She used her grappling to just completely dominate Megan Anderson because she wanted nothing to do with the feet. And that was a whole new wrinkle to her game. Like, she's only ever been a striker, and suddenly here she is wrestling. And
Great game plan.
Great game plan.
Great game plan.
If Nunez gasses out, which she's gone 5 rounds before, and with Valentina Shevchenko no less, I'm not expecting her to really gas out. But if she tries to make it a war like she did with Cyborg and can't quite get the KO, maybe Holm gets back into this thing by grappling in rounds 3 and 4 and 5.
Hey, at those odds, if you want to sprinkle it, I wouldn't call you crazy. I mean, if they're looking at paying you 22 times whatever you're putting down on it,
Yeah.
why not? I don't. I think it's that for a reason. I think that might be a little wild of an outcome, but hey, you're getting paid wild money for it. So
Right.
if you're into it, go for it. I wouldn't, as much of a knockout artist as Nunez. I mean, as much power she has in her hands.
Do you think she gets it done?
I don't know that she gets it done. I honestly, I think that there's value in this fight going longer than you might think if you just watched her wreck Cyborg. You know, I think that the folks who have, that if you were setting odds based on what she did to Cyborg, obviously you're going to be, she's a huge favorite, and her winning by knockout in the first 30 seconds is going to be, what's expected. I don't think that Holly's going to be shocked by somebody who can throw hard.
Yeah.
She's seen that before. I think that Nunez is legit beast, but I think that Holly's experience and her time in kickboxing she's probably seen 1 or 2 people who have knockout power.
Just a couple.
And I think she's smart enough. She instituted a great game plan against Megan. I think she's smart enough to realize, okay, probably the game plan isn't to lock feet in a phone booth and throw bombs at each other if I want to come away with this thing. I think she's going to try to manage the distance. It'll be interesting to see how well she's able to do that. And I don't know where Nunez is going to come in. I think Amanda's smart enough to realize that she can't pull the Ronda Rousey and rush forward the entire time. I think that Nunez pulls this out. I wouldn't be shocked if this went all 5 rounds, though.
Plus 267. If you think Nunez gets it done by 5-round decision, it's plus 267.
There's a part of me that would be looking at that and would be. I don't know that I see Holly getting knocked out later in the fight, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how I think about it, but the props are definitely where it's at for me on this fight.
Okay, fair enough. I might have to sprinkle Nunez in round 3 at 10-1.
I think that's probably
because I think
I'm with you there.
That might be
10-1.
a gambler's delight type of bet, because if she starts to put it on Holly, and Holly's getting older, if she can hold up for a round or 2, then we start getting into the territory where anyone can go down. I don't know.
How wild is it that now I think Holly makes it out of the first round, but if you think Nunez finishes this thing, you could honestly sprinkle 1/4 of a unit across Nunez in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and if she finishes it, still come out money ahead when it's all said and done.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, round 2 is plus 600. So if Holly Holm just survives round 1 and then Nunez gets it done in literally any other round, you're looking at plus 600, plus 1,000, plus 16, and then plus 24.
You bet on those 4 rounds. Now, I'm not suggesting anybody go out and bet a unit on each of those 4 rounds, but let's say you
chop it up into 4.
Carve it up, right? You bet 1/4 of a unit on each one.
Yeah.
You're coming out at plus 150, worst case scenario.
Yeah.
I think her finishing in rounds 2 through 5 is probably the most likely outcome.
Yeah. I don't like that. I don't hate that. That's the mathematician, ladies and gentlemen, has given you some clues inside these odds and these numbers, because that's fair. If you think Nunez gets it done inside the distance, all you're fading is round 1.
Yeah.
All you're fading is round 1.
If you're slow to follow the numbers, if you were to bet $1 on her to finish in round 2, another dollar in round 3, another dollar in round 4, another dollar in round 5. You've bet $4. If she wins in round 2, you win 6. If she
You're making a
wins
$2 profit on it. Just that
right.
easy.
Exactly right. And so that might be the move. It might be to sprinkle across the last 4 rounds.
We're gonna have the old man parlay, and
parlay
then
and
the props, the 4-round prop bet
all about the
extravaganza. Oh man, I cannot wait to see how this one turns out, and I'm gonna be curious what Nunez does after this, because she has personally taken a sledgehammer to women's Mount Rushmore and stands above it, the 2-division champion, queen of the universe, ruler of all. What do you do?
So Dana White was asked if he was going to do a trilogy fight with her and Shevchenko, and he was nodding along.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Nodding along. I may be making that up, but no.
I mean, so the first 2 fights were phenomenal.
Well, of course. Why wouldn't they be?
My only okay, so trilogies in general. I don't like trilogies unless they're 1-to-1. There's something about it to me that, so even like the DC and Jones trilogy, as much as those 2 fights were great, and don't get me wrong, I would pony up $60 to watch a third one.
Yep.
There's nothing there for me, because I'm like, Jones won 2-1. You're playing paper, rock, scissors, best of 3. Jones already got it.
Yep.
If DC wins the third match, you're still down 2-1.
Yep.
And maybe you want to say like, oh yeah, but I got the last straw. Like that's, Tito Ortiz in Bellator getting the last win over Chuck Liddell. Sorry, not in Bellator. Bellator wasn't even bad enough to put that fight on.
Nope.
Tito Ortiz getting the retirement fight over Chuck Liddell doesn't erase the first 3 beatings he took.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one that I know they were very competitive. I know some people thought that Valentina won the second one, which I think adds maybe a little bit of salt to it.
Yep.
But
I only see making that fight for 2 reasons. Who else are you going to have her fight?
Yeah.
And it's a legit money fight as
Absolutely.
far as the women go.
Right now, I mean, I think it's fair to say those are probably the 2 biggest stars in women's MMA right now. Valentina has a massive following. People love her, and now that she's dropped down and gotten a belt, they're struggling to find contenders, especially after the death head kick that she just laid in her last fight against poor Jessica Ai.
Well, and I don't know. I don't know from a UFC standpoint. Like, you've got 2 women leading the charge right now, and you've got another generation coming up behind them.
Yeah.
Who I'm quite confident are going to fill this roster out and going to give us some fights to watch for the next decade.
For sure.
But do you take the chance of taking your 2-headed dragon and chopping it in half by having a fight again?
Why you
I don't
really
see
want them to kill each other?
If they put it on, I'll watch.
Sure.
But I don't see it, and I don't know what else you do with Amanda. If Amanda comes out of this, riding high after adding Holly Holm to her pelt list, I don't know what else you do with
You chisel her face into the belt.
Yeah, right?
She's officially the women's GOAT.
I mean, do you start having, like, tag team matches with her? I don't know what else to do with her.
Throw Roxanne Modafferi and Aspen Ladd in the cage.
There you go.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so we did it. We made it. We're finally at the main event, and John Jones is taking on Thor himself, Thiago Marreta Santos. And there's two chest tattoos in MMA that really stand out. And it's Thor's hammer on Marreta's chest and the grenade with the brass knuckles for a sword handle on Brock Lesnar's.
Yep.
Which one wins?
Well, I'm not unique in having come up with this one. I'm going to tip my hat to Brendan Schaub here. He called it out. It's got to be Thor's hammer because Brock Lesnar does sometimes look like he has a dildo on his chest. So,
Brendan. So all the people.
A lot of guts coming from a heavyweight to say that about my boy Brock, who, he knows I'm his biggest fan. But you still have to give the hat.
Text on the weekends every once in a while.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep.
That's people on the show are gonna think that I got that from Brendan Schaub's show. I had no idea they actually talked about the chest tattoos on Brendan's show. Yeah.
Brendan's boy Chin asked him, who wins.
That's so funny.
He's like, yeah, well,
I guess you'd have to throw Connor's screaming monkey face chest tattoo in there.
I don't think you would. I think that as much as Connor fan as I am, that tattoo's a little rough for me. That one makes me feel old. But I love Thiago's tattoo, but I do wonder is the tattoo the only advantage he's got over Johnny Bones Jones? I'll say I grant myself all kinds of credit for John Jones. I mean, 2 or 3 fights before he fought Matt Hamill, I texted my boy Joe Murray in Winslow. Not that he'll ever be listening to this because he's older than I am, so he probably has never heard of it.
I'll feel special if Joe listens to my podcast.
Maybe his son Ethan might be up to be listening to this.
Oh, shout out to Ethan. If Ethan is listening to this, Ethan is my boy.
But no, I saw John Jones fight before Matt. I'm trying to remember.
Stephan Bonner, maybe?
It was the Stephan Bonner fight. And I texted him like 30 seconds into it and said, you've got to get on this Johnny Bones Jones train because this kid has cheat codes. This kid's got buttons that work on his controller that nobody else has. And he's going to be the future.
Now, you might remember.
I said, he might do a whole bunch of cocaine and run into a pregnant woman. That might happen. But I called it all the way back then.
Thankfully, it hadn't happened yet. He was the good church boy at that phase of his career still. You may remember this. I hated John Jones. I could not stand John Jones. He's 1 year younger than me. And I'm trying to crack into being an artist.
Okay.
And I start doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And here comes this kid beating all the legends of the sport. And I was just like, the fuck, man?
Disrespecting the legends of the sport.
I was like, this kid is 1 year younger than me. I could have played football with him in high school. And he's out here wrecking the legends of my favorite sport. And I was like, I gotta hit the gym, man.
Brandon Vera moved to a new continent after fighting John Jones.
That's not a joke. That is not even a joke. Now, you mentioned Matt Hamill. What do you think of the whole overturning the loss situation?
Yeah, I think you let it ride. I think the idea that somehow he's getting less respect because of the Matt Hamill loss, I don't think that's the thing that are holding people back from being fans of Johnny Bones Jones. I think it has a whole lot more to do with stuff outside of the cage.
Probably the pregnant woman rear-ending.
Probably that.
Might be the picograms.
The picograms, maybe those. I don't think that's an issue. I think it's almost a make-believe issue. I find it really odd, and it's one of the things I like to hold on that after that fight, Jones absolutely was like, no, I broke the rule. I gave him such a hat tip after that I was like, not only does this kid have skills coming out of his ears, but the fact that he's willing to accept it.
Yeah.
That made me an even huger fan.
Yeah.
I was a big fan at that point.
And you're kind of spitting on it going backwards.
Yeah, you can't take that away.
I agree.
Now, Matt Hamill, if you're in charge of your own social media, you cannot talk about running it back with John Jones.
He asked for a rematch. He's not even in the UFC anymore.
Post the one picture that could have possibly been taken where he's landing a punch on John Jones during that fight and talking about running it back. Hilarious.
I mean, he retired from the sport and is no longer in the UFC, and he wants to run it back. I mean, props to the guy, I guess.
Yeah.
But
if you don't ask, you don't get. But nobody wants to see that fight.
So how do you see the fight with Santos going?
Honestly, I don't know what else you do with John Jones at this point. Santos, he's put together a heck of a string, knocking out everybody, but against anybody but John Jones, it's tough to pick against Santos. I don't know how you beat John Jones.
Nobody does.
Right?
I mean,
short of the strategy of trying to lay under him and hope that he forgets the rules, I don't know what you do against John Jones. I mean, Thiago, the idea that Thiago, that this is going to be such a fight because Thiago can always land that bomb.
Yeah.
Everybody at 205 who's fought John Jones could have landed that bomb.
Yeah.
Not maybe with the same force that Thiago throws with. But everybody has knockout power at 205 who fights for the championship. Thiago may have more than them, but it's not unique. John Jones is going to put him off kilter by kicking at his knees. He's going to be, threatening takedowns that Thiago can't deal with. If John Jones decided that he wanted to make this a wrestling match, it's going to be a wrestling match.
Yeah.
Tell Glover Teixeira how easy it is to land a bomb on John Jones.
Yeah. And, I mean, the only guy who was really landing quite successfully, the two, was Daniel Cormier.
Yep.
Right before the head kick KO, which that broke my heart because I've been a diehard DC fan, and in the DC versus Jones rivalry and war, I've been Team DC the whole way.
Yeah.
He was winning that fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then that head kick came out of nowhere, and that killed me. But DC was landing, and we saw what he just did to Stipe.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't crack Jones's chin.
Yep.
And then Machida, who, when Machida blitzed in on people, they faded hard. Mm-hmm. And he landed some shots on John Jones, and that's when John realized he needed to make it a grappling match. But he still didn't wobble or go down. You could tell he got hurt, but he never wobbled.
Yeah.
So
everybody who he's fought has had knockouts on their record.
Yeah.
Thiago's a heck of a striker. He's coming up in weight class, which I'm a fan of. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of him fighting at a place where he's able to be his full self. John Jones is a tall order.
Absolutely.
The best chance that Thiago has is that John Jones wrecks himself. I mean, John Jones came out and said, "I wish I was more nervous about this fight."
That was such a weird quote.
Right?
That was such a weird quote. And that, I mean, okay, so like the conspiracy theorist gambler in me makes me want to believe that means Santos has got more of a chance. Because if John is overlooking him in any way, I mean, I understand that's coming from a place of confidence for John. Mm-hmm. But if he is looking past Santos, that's when you get caught.
Fair. That is when you get caught. I took that as more of John Jones trying to sell the fight. That he realizes that there's half of the people who sign up for a John Jones fight want to watch the best who's ever done it. The other half want to see if this is the time. And he's talking to that half going, maybe this is the time. I wish I was more nervous about this fight.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I could buy that.
I think that John Jones is I would make the argument John Jones is the best that we've ever seen do this, in that he can out-grapple anybody. Mm-hmm. Chael, I don't know what that fight was even about. Credit to Chael for taking that fight in the first place. But the fact that John Jones took somebody with Chael's credentials and taught him how to wrestle is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
John Jones, there's nowhere that anybody has an advantage over him in my estimation.
It's absolutely insane.
If you said we're gonna throw technique out and you let me punch you in the face and then I'll let you punch me in the face, sure, Thiago has a chance. Anywhere outside of that, I just don't see it.
Oh, my damn dog. Sorry about that, everybody.
So again, this is one of those fights. I'm going prop crazy. By the end of this card, I'm going to have to look at my accounts to see if I won or lost. There's no way I'm keeping track of all of them.
It's going to be one of those ones where you have no idea how many bets you placed.
I'm going to think I killed it and find out I'm down.
So, the fun thing about Five Dimes is they actually offer multiple different decision props. If you take John Jones by unanimous decision, you're going to get plus 485. If you take him by a split decision, you get plus 1190, which is just ridiculous. But let's be real. If it goes to a decision, it's probably not going to be a split. John Jones by KO is plus 165. John Jones by submission is plus 185, which that one's a little tempting. That one is a little tempting. And then Jones in a 5-round decision. Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's Jones in round 5. I was like, what? 20-1? I was like, are you kidding me?
You and I just had the exact same brain fart. That's hilarious.
So I'm just scrolling here. They've got so many props. 382. Plus 382 for John to win by a decision.
Woo! I like that one. I don't know. Here's my concern. It's not that I don't think that Jones has the ability to finish this fight. I'm wondering, we just saw him go the distance with with Lionheart. I'm wondering if he even engages enough to try to finish. I'm wondering if he walks into the storm that is Thiago and gives him a chance to throw that hammer at him.
Yeah.
Or if he just picks him apart, plays out his advantage, and wins all 5 rounds.
You know what? And that's something that the two ways I see this fight going is honestly John Jones dominating exactly like he did with Lionheart, shutting down his game for 5 rounds.
Yep.
And honestly, it's almost like cruel and unusual punishment. Yep. He gives you no way out of that fight.
Right.
Because he's not going for the submission, so you can't give up your neck. Mm-hmm. And he's not going to hit you hard enough to knock you out because he's not trying to. So you can't get knocked out or get rocked or anything either. You just have to take your beating. For 25 minutes, you've just got to take your beating. And I've got to give a shout out to my boy, MMA Kelton on Twitter. We did a roundtable on YouTube, a live show roundtable.
Oh, yeah?
And I told him I would eat my shoe if the John Jones fight went to decision with Anthony Smith. Because Smith is a finisher and goes out on his shield if he doesn't win the thing inside the distance. And John Jones just came off of the brutal crushing of Gustafsson.
Yeah.
And I was like, John Jones is turning a page here. He's going to finish everybody from here on out.
Yep.
Like, he's going to make statement victories. And I truly believed that. And my boy Kelton was going to get about 6-1 on Jones to win by decision. And I talked him out of it. Because I was like, there is no way that this fight goes to the cards. And I still feel bad for that. So, Kelton, if you're listening to this one, I apologize.
Hey,
and I owe you a beer.
You got to stand your ground when you have a call that awesome, though. Come on.
So he would have nailed it, and you're obviously not getting as juicy of a line this time because of that fight going that way. Mm-hmm. But I think John Jones either wins this thing by decision or Thiago gets him out of there. Those are the two ways I see it going, because Thiago's a black belt. I mean, I know Machida's a black belt too, and Jones subbed him, but Jones hasn't been overly interested in the grappling game lately. So I don't think he's going to voluntarily engage in the ground game. I think he's going to feel like he's slick enough on the feet to keep it at range and get it done.
I think he is, and he may go that route. But I'm going to go opposite you here. I actually like the idea. I'm wondering about the idea of Jones by sub for this reason, because when you get to John Jones' spot and they're throwing you everybody that people are willing to watch you fight, I wonder if John doesn't decide to test himself by going, hey, nobody's seen me win by submission in a while. I'm pretty good at that.
He just gets to pick his outcome.
He decides, hey, I think I'll sub this guy at 3 minutes and 15 seconds into the 4th round because that's who I am. I don't know about Santos's black belt is interesting to me. Some of his earlier fights got the rough end of some grappling exchanges.
Yeah.
Wasn't there with some guys who had legit grappling, but against Jones, everybody gets the worst end of it.
For sure.
Hang your black belts on the wall. I don't. I respect the heck out of him, but if you're fighting John Jones, I feel like you might as well leave him at home.
So this is another one where we need to chop up a unit and go on the round props for Santos, because if he is going to get this thing done inside the distance, I mean, how realistic is it that Santos KOs Jones in round 1? I'd say not very.
Yeah.
So if you're going to say he gets it done, in round 2, you've got plus 1650. Round 3 is 2250. Round 4 is 3050. And then round 5 is 4050. If Thiago digs deep, that's what I'm saying. 1. Chop the one unit up into
Bet
4.
All 4, you're 4-1.
Oh. I mean, even in round 1, you're getting 10-1. So really, realistically, you could just bet a quarter unit on all 5 of those. And as long as Santos gets it done, you're in for a score.
Wow. That one.
That might be better than playing the prop straight.
You really might be onto something there. Because
if you're interested in Santos getting this thing done inside the distance, you're getting plus 574.
Okay, so what's the bigger payout though? Is it getting those kinds of odds, you bet $10 and you cash $100, or is it being able to say, I actually bet on John Jones's loss coming at that fight. I called that before it happened. I don't know. That's a heck of a call to make.
I guess it depends on, do you want the cash value or do you want the bragging rights?
I don't know. Those bragging rights would be pretty sweet against a boy like Bones.
You know what the best part about the round props is for bragging rights? Nobody knows you fired on every single round. You're like, I picked him. I can show you the ticket, son. Thiago Santos in round 3. I called that.
Yep. Can't pronounce his name, but that last card, our boy coming over from Africa, really helped me out last time because I sprinkled across the rounds
against Craig
in the third when it was the biggest odds.
No, wait a sec. Not Minifield.
Nope.
Champion. He goes by Champion. I know who you're talking about.
Yep.
All right.
Fighting the guy who
beautiful. The late fill-in replacement. He actually looked good too.
Yeah, I thought he did well.
That was a good card.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets another fight after that.
He should.
Yeah,
he was like a 3-1 underdog and came in and really he made a good impression for being a 3-1 underdog at the wrong weight class.
Yeah, I thought I did pretty well.
Well,
but yeah, I'm looking at this one. Sprinkling Santos across the last 4 rounds is an interesting bet. I think
you're getting
Jones
40 to
wins.
1 on round 5, so
right?
Quarter unit 140 to 1.
I don't know what else you do. I mean, even the Jones wins in rounds are wild.
Yeah, I mean, those ones are pretty wild. And the thing is, I don't see him getting it done early. So if you were going to take Jones in the rounds, I'd say 3, 4, and 5. You're getting 6 to 1, 12 to 1, and then 20 to 1 on 3, 4, and 5.
So
Santos,
if you bet those 3, you're doubling up?
I mean, Santos,
if he wins it all.
He doesn't go down easy. I don't see him going down in rounds 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless it's what we're talking about where John decides we're grappling tonight and takes him down and chokes him out. That's the only way I see him getting finished early. And I don't know that it's going to be quite that easy for him. I mean, I know he's got a ground advantage. I know he's got a wrestling advantage. But Santos is still a physical specimen. Yeah. And if John waits for him to gas out, then it's going to get easier.
I will say, as big of a kid as Thiago is, I think he fits at this weight class. I think he might need a couple more fights, a couple more years to fill out. John Jones at 205 is ridiculous. I mean, John Jones, it's wild to think that a guy going to be fighting at 205 might be the favorite against the heavyweight champion. At heavyweight. Yeah. How wild is that? I mean, just as a concept, that's wild.
That's nuts. Okay, so just hypothetically speaking, John Jones moves up to heavyweight and we do a little mini tournament. You've got DC, Stipe, John Jones, Ngannou. Who's the champion after it all shakes out?
Wow. I honestly, I think that the only matchup for him that presents problems is Ngannou.
I agree. I completely agree.
I think that the fact that Kane's grappling doesn't. I mean, Kane is a monster grappler.
Yeah.
Against John?
Yeah. And I mean, I think heavyweight DC is greater than light heavyweight DC. I think he belongs at heavyweight. Even though you feel like he's shorter and stockier and he can cut all that weight off, he's just got more power. And somehow he's got more speed. Even carrying the weight, he's better at heavyweight.
How wild. That's such a weird...
So weird. But I think...
Makes no sense.
I favor DC in the Stipe rematch. Yeah. I think it looks very much the same. I think he KOs him again. And I favor Francis Ngannou over all of them. I think that John is built for light heavyweight. And if you put him next to Ngannou, he will look like the skinny kid next door. There's
Everybody
such a physical...
Francis is crazy.
And that's my point. I don't think John Jones can put on the kind of mass that it would take for him to have a shot against a guy like Stipe.
I think he can.
I mean, not Stipe, sorry, Ngannou.
I think he can. I think he might have a Pico issue, but I think
stick all the needles in him.
But I think the biggest issue that I would have against him with Ngannou is a matter of mindset. One of the advantages that John has had forever is is wild and as game as all of these guys are. You do not make it to the UFC without believing in yourself.
Absolutely.
But everybody knows that they're fighting John freaking Jones. And they may believe in themselves. But tough sell convincing me that everybody thinks they've got a 100% chance to win when they're walking into the cage to fight John Jones.
Yeah.
That's rough. Now, Ngannou has that freak power.
It's the great equalizer, man.
Yeah, I think he's the one guy on the roster, to be honest, that makes John Jones go, whoo, I've got to be on the tip top of my game. This guy legitimately has a path to whoop me.
You don't need to have chin issues to go down against Francis Ngannou. You're going to have the healthiest chin there's ever been. I promise you he'll crack it.
Yeah. No, he has knockout power. It's just wild. It's so weird. Everybody has knockout power. Francis Ngannou, I mean, the Overeem punch. Yeah. Overeem is a striker, a legit top-level, gigantic beast of a striker. He's been hit by top-level guys.
Yeah.
His head doesn't do that.
No, and that's, you know what? That's the one that I think really sold me on Ngannou.
Yeah.
Was the skill it takes to land that shot.
Yeah.
He is a power-crazed monster, but you do not land that flush on a guy like Alistair Overeem without the skills to back it up. And power without the skills only gets you so far.
And a willingness. I mean, to be honest, how many times has Overeem faced guys who had power but who were like, I don't know if I want to put everything into this strike because I'm fighting Overeem.
He can counter just as hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to get, if I lean forward too much, I'm going to get kicked in the liver and need a new organ because I'm fighting Overeem, for goodness sake. Now, I think that John Jones is a wild talent. I think we're watching Michael Jordan of MMA.
I agree.
And I root for him to get his crap together and keep it together. But the guy's he's a freak of nature. If you're not setting down your young child and saying you should root for this guy, then so long as you're as long as you don't have a kid who's role modeling himself after John Jones, there's nothing not to like about John Jones.
Model your athletic life after this man.
And like I said, I do root for the kid. I don't understand, but I do root for him. I don't know how Santos gets it done. The prop bets are where it's at to me in this fight. If you're looking for a spot, and then the future's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, all these. We've got a little bit of a peaking issue with some of these guys. After Santos, where are we going with John Jones? Thank goodness we do have
Rakic is coming up. Wyman's up. Rockhold's up, and then you've got
some life.
Johnny Walker, who took the place by storm. Latifi and Uzdemir are going to duke it out, which I don't think either of those guys stand a chance against John Jones, but. I'm a fan of Uzdemir, at least.
I think it's wild that you legit have a champion who's been a champion for as long as he has been.
Oh my gosh, I know.
And yet the best challengers we have are legit 6-1 underdogs. 5-1 underdogs.
I think if he wants to hang out at 205 and just rack up as much money as humanly possible, he's going to do something that I don't think anyone will ever do again, and that's clear out a division twice.
Yeah.
He cleared it out of the legends that got us all into the sport. Rampage, that era, he went through everybody.
Yeah.
Completely cleaned it out. Took a couple years off on a coke bender.
Yep.
And came back, and now we've got a whole nother generation of fighters. And as much as the hater inside me would love to watch him go down, especially to a guy like Johnny Walker, who I'm so high on.
Yeah.
If he just crushes them all for the next 3-4 years, he will clean out the whole division twice. And they'll be like, dude, like 205ers are asking for us to make a 195 division because they want a shot at the belt. Like they're not even interested anymore.
Yeah.
Only Father Time will beat John Jones.
As much of I'm right with you when it comes to having a trilogy fight when somebody's lost the first two. I will say I'm such a fan of DC that I wouldn't hate the idea of seeing the third one at heavyweight because I think that DC could talk himself into that he tied a bow on this one and he settled that score and it's done with without actually looking at his record and realizing he's still down 2-1.
You know what though, and this is a weird spot for me because heavyweight's DC's world.
Yeah.
John Jones is stepping into DC's world.
Okay.
If
so
we do it
it's
that
an
way,
advantage.
I think it's an advantage. And even though I like that, I'll watch the third one at heavyweight because I think it adds a new wrinkle to the fight that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
I think DC's too proud to do it. I think DC is much like Conor did with Nate. He's not going to go, no, you cut those pounds and come where I'm good. He's not going to do that. He's going to say, look, I've lost to you twice at 205. I'm not going to give myself a leg up.
That's fair.
I will cut to 205 and I will show you I can beat you. That's what he's going to do.
I think that's who he is.
And I don't think it's going to happen at heavyweight because of that. I mean, unless Dana White gets his checkbook out and it's literally his retirement fight and all the piles of money that he's ever dreamed of come true for him to get it done one last time at heavyweight, that's the only way I see it.
You know, honestly, I'm not rooting for that fight to happen. I don't want to see it happen, to be honest with you. I want for DC to go out on top. I think he's earned it. I think he's a heck of a fighter.
Yeah.
I mean, ridiculous.
If it wasn't for John Jones, he would be the greatest of all time.
Absolutely.
With his resume.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, not just in the UFC. Before the UFC, he was wrecking folks in. He was in Pride for a while. He was in
Bellator. He did the heavyweight Grand Prix.
Yes.
He was an alternate. He wasn't even supposed to be in the Grand Prix. Somebody drops out. He's an alternate in, becomes the Bellator heavyweight champion.
Love DC.
Yeah.
Love DC. And one of the only times that bummed me out about fans of this sport, about UFC fans, was when he couldn't find love. I'm going, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, like I say, old school fan John Jones. Talented guy. I know we're watching Michael Jordan play. But come on now. You can respect Michael Jordan and yet still, have love for Scottie Pippen. You don't have to hate on one in order to love the other one. And that one bummed me out. Okay, DC may come off a little bit corny. But come on now. DC is a beast.
But I'll take corny over Coke Bender running pregnant women over picograms John Jones. I don't understand the hate that DC has always gotten for being a genuinely fun guy and a genuinely good example.
Good guy.
When you put the two of them next to each other, John might have won inside the cage, but DC won outside the cage.
Yep.
And if either of them embodies a champion to me,
yep,
far and away, bar none, it's DC.
Yep.
He handles himself like a champion.
Yep.
He handles himself like a gentleman. He doesn't go for the low blow, the easy get under your skin. Like, don't get me wrong, he'll talk trash. Sure. He'll get under people's skin. It's part of the fight game. It makes it fun. But some of the stuff John has said has been borderline unforgivable.
John Jones's elevator runs a little bit too low for me.
Yeah.
It's got buttons on it that I don't like to see pressed by anybody.
Exactly.
And, I will say we're talking about a sport. And at this sport, this is John Jones' sport.
Yeah.
This is his arena. There's nobody else that can do what he's doing. But you got to be able to find love for DC somewhere. I mean, if you were picking a neighbor, you're picking, somebody to marry your sister. You're picking a guy you want to work out with. You're picking a guy you want to listen. I love watching fights and hearing DC calling him. The guy's
he's a great commentator.
Awesome. I can't understand the fact that he's had to work, the fact that he's had to wait as long as he has.
Yeah. For
the love from the fans.
I just don't want to see his retirement fight be his third loss to John Jones. No, I don't want that to be the way he exits the sport.
Nope. Don't want to see it. Not interested. I honestly, I like the rematch with Stipe. I think Stipe earned it. Stipe had a string. He did some good stuff. I like Stipe as well. I think he's a good dude. But
damn it, man! I wish he would have fought once.
Huh?
I wish he would have just gotten out there and gotten a knockout to get his rematch like you're supposed to instead of sitting on the sidelines.
That's fair.
I'm right there with you. I'm a big fan of Stipe's. I like him. I feel like he's done the best any heavyweight in the UFC has done as far as defending it 3 times. And even though I think that DC's the heavyweight GOAT, on paper, Stipe's the heavyweight GOAT. So he's earned it. For sure, he's earned it. But man, just go out there and knock one dude out Show us you're the baddest man. Show us you deserve that title shot.
I count DC as the heavyweight GOAT.
I do too.
Because of his fights, even outside of the UFC,
Those were legit guys.
I think he's the heavyweight GOAT. Stipe, all respect to him. I mean, it's something in the UFC at the heavyweight division to put together a string of wins because nobody does that at the championship level.
How crazy is it that in heavyweight it's 3 wins and they're like GOAT, greatest of all time, best to ever do it. And here you've got guys like Tony Ferguson on like a 14 fight win streak in the lightweight division that aren't even getting a title shot.
Yeah, I mean, there's people who are walking through minefields going, at least I'm not fighting in the UFC heavyweight division. I mean, anything goes wrong.
Yeah,
and you're out. It's wildly competitive. Anything goes. The light heavyweight division is very much the second to that in terms of there's all kinds of ways that fights can end. These guys are throwing bombs from everywhere at each other, and Thiago can flat out throw those bombs.
Absolutely.
But I don't know. I just don't see it. I feel like the future is there. I feel like he very much could be a future champ at this weight class.
Okay.
I think we've got. I think Jones is going to have to go over the peak of his career a little bit before we get to see anybody beat him.
I think you're right. Unfortunately, I will personally be sprinkling a little on Thiago Santos just for funsies because I would much rather root for the big upset KO than try to lay the 8-1 now that the smart money is finally coming back on Jones the other way.
Yeah.
I'll take that little poke. Just nothing crazy, just something fun to cheer for throughout the fight. But
hey, the props are where it's at.
Exactly. So you know what, man? Besides the old man parlay,
I'm telling you.
What's your favorite bet on the card? What's the one fight that you really just feel like is your personal home run, the one that you're gonna hit and go after?
Yeah, no, I think the old man parlay is it for me. To be honest, the old man parlay is the shot. I think there's some value throughout this card. I think all the way from the first all the way through, we've got some young up and comers who are taking massive steps up in competition. That if I think we've got some guys who may get the loss that fuels them for the next rise in their careers, and I think we may see some. I think we'll probably see, if we go back to like the beginning, we've got Ishmael and we've got Edmund. I would not be interested in a parlay with those two. First off, my heart's not in it for those two the way that it is with Gilbert and Diego.
Absolutely.
But you would not blow me over if you said one of those two.
You're still laying minus 250 on that parlay with the way the odds are at too.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be shocked at all if one of those ends up with a loss. Now I think either one of them ends up with a loss. Not the end of the world for them. I think they go back to the drawing board and come back with a fury. I like the future of both of those guys. I like your Randa pick. As big of a fan of Claudia as I am, I don't think she should be as big of a favorite as she is. I think Randa presents a good challenge. This fight is this card is just ridiculous.
Full circle.
Ridiculous. I can't wait to see Masvidal and Askren. That could have been the end of the card. They could have saved the co-main and the main event to headline other cards to me. Very interested in seeing Luke at light heavyweight. I don't know, man. This card is ridiculous. This fight's ridiculous. I really hope that nobody that I care about has anything important going on Saturday because I'm missing it if they do. It just is what it is.
I'm right there with you. I'm literally leaving a dinner party early to watch the pay-per-view. I've got the ESPN app on my phone, and I'm supposed to be at a dinner party. It will be on the whole time. Absolutely. No matter how much my wife yells at me, it will be on.
Sorry, Miranda, that is what it is.
I'm so sorry. And Steve, I love you. You make amazing food. I can't wait to hang out with you guys, but I got to watch these fights. And then we're going to leave early so we can catch the main card.
Yeah. Hey, I've got a wild question. What do you think happens after this fight with Ben and Jorge? The future of that division is so interesting to me.
I wrote a whole art. So for those of you who don't know, I actually write articles for SBR, sportsbookreview.com,
nice.
Where they actually, they review all the sports books that are out there. They compare all the lines that are out there, makes line shopping really easy. They're a good site, and I write articles on MMA for them. I just did a piece talking about the 170 pound division. Welterweight has never been this fun before.
Right.
Never.
Agreed.
Literally never. GSP, at the height of his power, had a small handful of contenders, and then they started throwing guys like Dan Hardy to him, which I love Dan Hardy, but he was a marketing move. They were trying to break into the UK, and they needed a challenger, so they threw him a couple of cupcakes and went, here's your hero, now go fight the champ. He didn't belong there.
Shout out to the Outlaw. He wonderfully entertaining dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
You know what? He admits that too. He was like, I didn't belong in there. He knew that.
Yeah.
He trained submission defense for the entire camp just to survive. Because not getting tapped by GSP was a win for him.
Every time I think of Dan Hardy, I think back to when he fought Carlos Condit.
Oh, that was such a good
threw
fight.
left hooks at each other.
Yeah.
That was wild. That was
And they
such a
threw
great
the
moment.
identical combo.
Yep.
That was amazing.
Great moment.
So I am so stoked for it. So we've got Jorge Masvidal, we've got Ben Askren, you've got Darren Till, who kind of fell off the planet, but he's still around. He's coming back this year.
A monster.
And a monster.
Nobody wants to be Darren Till's comeback fight after that.
He got pushed way too hard, way too early. He needed some time off. And now that he's got it, I think we might see some improvements. And I'm sure they're not going to put him back in the top 5 again, which he probably will get a good comeback fight, I would think. So then you've got guys like Pettis that have moved up and are getting a total career rejuvenation, flatlining Wonder Boy.
Yeah.
You've got another guy doing a similar sort of thing in RDA, who's holding strong at like the 3 and 4 spot, who's facing Leon Edwards, which is a underrated, sick fight. I love that fight so much.
Yeah.
I am so high on Leon Edwards. He's my dark horse of the division. I think he's the guy that could sneak in there and take the belt without people realizing who he is on the way up, because he's got a very underrated, well-rounded skill set. Now, I don't know if he's got the wrestling to contend with the top 3, which, of course, we have Usman, Colby, and Woodley sitting at the...
Grapplers.
Holy crap. And then Askren. How do you get by the top 4? I mean, RDA couldn't do it, and he's tried against all 3 of them. I mean, so you've got...
If you want to have normal-looking ears, you cannot fight.
Oh, my God, right? You better wear that headset. You've got Usman number 1, Colby number 2, and the weirdest thing, Colby's fighting Robbie Lawler next. He's not unifying the belt against Usman because Usman's out with a surgery, I think. He's defending the interim title against Robbie freaking Lawler. Lawler can jump the entire chain, coming off a loss to Ben Askren if he KOs Colby Covington.
Is in the title picture.
That is not an easy fight. Yep. Colby is not a runaway train wreck winner. We just saw what Robbie Lawler can do to a wrestler.
Yeah, it's a wild division.
It's insane now.
It is wild.
I love it so much.
I don't know what they do to share. I think this is going to be one of those divisions, almost like the heavyweights have been in the past, where you may see a chain of people holding that belt that they just one at a time. Yeah, just here. Now you hold it for a couple of fights.
Absolutely.
Matchups make fights, and these guys are just it's gonna be wild. It's gonna be a fun ride.
I'm very, very curious because I don't know. I was high on Woodley. I actually really thought Woodley was going to be able to defend against Usman. I underestimated just how big Usman would be. And I thought that Woodley was going to finally pull the trigger and be more aggressive. I didn't expect him to shell up and play so defensively.
That fight was so weird.
It was really disappointing. It was strange.
I wouldn't be shocked if a year and a half from now, if we're saying, yeah, he lost to Usman, we can draw a line through that because we've seen a couple fights since then. Or who knows? I mean, maybe his rap career takes off. I'm not a big fan. I don't know where he's going with that. I'm sorry. I love Woodley. He's terrible. His rap game is not where it needs to be. But, I mean, props to him having a side hustle and making money outside of the cage. Absolutely. I just don't think he's hungry anymore. He's been the champion for so long. Okay. And he got used to game planning. He got away from being the vicious, brutal fighter that he was to get there, and he started becoming a GSP-like game plan style fighter. Okay. And I think because of that, he lost that drive. I think he's using his brain more and less of his body, which I know he's still in phenomenal shape, but I don't know if he's ever going to get back to the title, which bums me out because I was a big fan of him, and all he got was hate. Super talented guy.
Absolutely. Really interested to see how this shakes out. I think the winner of Askren and Jorge, honestly, they might have to take another fight because you've got Colby, who's got the interim strap, and he's facing off against Robbie Lawler. And if they don't give Colby the next fight, if he wins this one, what does it take to get a title shot?
I think they have to. I think if Colby beats Robbie and doesn't get the next title shot, you have to stop having an interim belt.
Yeah. All rules are off at that point. Like they messed all of lightweight up, and poor Tony lost his belt and is still not getting his title shot. And if they do it again at 170 to Colby, I mean that's just gross. So I know it's all timing. It's all got to line up on the calendar for them.
Are so weird to me.
Yeah.
I think if Colby doesn't get a title shot, whether you like Colby or not, I think if he doesn't get a title shot, you just got to stop doing it. I mean, the way that UFC does have somewhat of a history with the interim belt, I get maybe
it makes sense sometimes.
There's a couple of maybe they're thinking there's a couple of folks who aren't super interested in signing up for every card unless there's a strap on the line, but I don't know. I don't get it. As a fan who's willing to buy the fights for the fights, whether the guys are strapped or not, if they're good matchups, it's just not for me. When you have an interim belt and you do with the interim belt what you have been doing, to me, it's like it's like getting married and sleeping with all the bridesmaids on your wedding night. I just don't get it.
If I don't understand why you drag your own product through the mud that way.
Yep.
If you've got a bad fight that's headlining a card, putting a belt on the line doesn't do a damn thing for me. It's still a bad fight. I'm still a degenerate. I'll still watch it.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
But the casual fan looking at it and going, it's not great. But it's for the belt. I don't understand that. I mean, apparently it works because otherwise they wouldn't keep doing it, but I don't understand the people out there that are digging into their pockets for it.
I want to see Tony Ferguson get his title shot. I'd like to see Colby Covington get a title shot.
Yep.
The fact that Tony hasn't fought for a title yet is crazy.
Absolutely bonkers.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
What exactly does the guy have to do?
Yeah. And the way he just mauled Cowboy, of all people, he killed the fan favorite. I mean, as he said, now I know you're not on Twitter, but his hashtag is champ shit only, which I completely agree with.
Yeah.
He deserves it.
I feel like the guy could cure cancer and then solve the polarization in the U.S. political system, and they still wouldn't give him a title shot.
They'd be like, thanks, dude, but you know what? Connor's still here, so sit this one out.
I don't get it.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it. Honestly, I think the winner of Funky and Jorge probably gets matched up with the winner of RDA and Edwards. There's the history with Edwards and Jorge that I think that's the fight to make if those two win. Mm-hmm. If those two win, I think that's the fight to make because then Colby and Lawler will have it out, and the winner of that one probably gets the next title shot.
Okay.
So that makes that makes sense for a number one contender and stay busy fight with a storyline.
Yep.
If Funky gets the win, if Usman comes back with all the Marty talk, poor Colby might be on the sidelines.
I'm telling you,
from a storyline and a money standpoint, poor Colby might be out in the cold because there's such a history there.
I won't support it except for buying the fight.
Except the only way that matters.
Except for the only way they care about it. If Funky comes out smelling like a rose after his Jorge fight, and gets on the mic and calls out Marty.
Where you at, Marty?
Colby,
it's over.
You may end up having to sing on a court.
Colby could TKO Lawler in round one, and it would not matter.
Hey, and I wanted to thank you. If if anybody hasn't seen who's listening to this, I just signed up with Bet Odds, and got my 100% bonus. So, if this is one of those cards where if you haven't gotten into picking out fights, if you're not interested in gambling, we are not trying to talk you into it. If you're interested in gambling and this is the card that's so exciting that you're like, I think I'm going to sign up for something and put some money that I can afford to lose on this fight, hey, jump on, get Clint's, get the code.
Doing my advertising for me.
Have some fun. Hey, if you can afford to gamble, I hate throwing out numbers for folks, but if you can afford to gamble $50 and you open up your account and you get $100 to play with instead, you want to throw something on the old man parlay, now's the time. Play with house money.
Imagine deposit $50 and get a free 50, and the old man parlay comes through at 14-1. They would not give me a bonus code ever again. All right, thank you for bringing that up, my man. Bet Odds Sportsbook is an official affiliate of the Die Hard MMA podcast, and for Die Hard listeners, use code FE6EFB for a 100% deposit match. Minimum deposit is $50, maximum deposit is $500, and anything that you put in there in that range, they will match, and you can bet on it immediately. So if you want to deposit $100 and put it on my plays and make some, grindy, straightforward money, and then put the other 100 bonus on the old man parlay, you could be looking at $1,500 in your account come Sunday morning.
Well, hey, if this old man can figure it out, who hasn't figured out Twitter yet, I'm telling you, it's really not. It's simple to do. They even have a chat button on there. I screwed something up, popped onto the chat button. They were like, "Hey, do here, go there," and took care of me. So excellent
customer service on top of a bonus match. What are you people waiting for? Let's go.
To them. They jumped on this train early. I'm sure everybody will be on the Die Hard MMA podcast train soon. But thanks for letting me come on, man.
Thank you for coming on, man. It was fun. It was an absolute blast breaking down the fights with you for the first ever episode of the Die Hard Diaries. As always, I'm your host, Clint McLean, for the Die Hard MMA podcast. Thank you all for listening. Let me know. Jump on Twitter and tell us if the Die Hard Diaries is something you enjoyed. If you want us to do another show like this, we're thinking maybe for the big numbered events, this might become something that's once every 4 fights or something like that. Regular thing we do, or on an exciting matchup that gets us going, we'll do a more fun, relaxed, casual breakdown. Let us know what you thought. And thank you, Judd, for coming on the podcast and shooting the shit with me. I enjoyed it.
Love it.
Awesome. Everybody, good luck if you tail us. Good luck if you fade us. Fuck you. But
there you go.
If you're doing your own bets, then good luck, and we hope you all cash. Good luck at UFC 239. Clint, out. Let's roll.